This year sees a change to the route that we've had over the previous years with a finish inside the Dubai Police Academy. As always, we see many top and new young Ethiopian runners coming here in search of that fast time they've seen others achieve over the previous years. It's a place where debutants can come out and run extremely quickly. No major championships this year, but still that chance of a major breakthrough race, and for many other athletes who also come from all around the world in search of a fast time, because this course is known for being a quick course with a great atmosphere, great organisation and great support out along the routes. What more can you ask for?
Yes, good day to you and a very warm welcome to this 25th edition of the Dubai Marathon. It has proved itself over the years as one of the quickest courses on the world marathon scene, which has expanded dramatically since the first major race here back in 2000. Myself, Tim Hutchings, and Paula Radcliffe, former world record holder, with you now for the next 3 hours and more as these races unfold here on this rather glorious city of 4,000 souls. You can see the Marathon Elite race gets underway at 5:45, slightly earlier than in years gone by, but more importantly, Paula, much cooler than in years gone by this morning. Conditions are perfect.
Absolutely. At the moment, we see temperatures around about 13. That will climb slightly, but not too much. And interestingly, the humidity is not too high either. So athletes who've come here looking for a fast time find the conditions to their liking and conducive to chasing those times today.
Yes, indeed. So much to look forward to.
Yes, so many of those Ethiopian athletes have come here to win. They have watched time and time again performances by the likes of their idol, Haile Gebrselassie, back in 2007, demonstrating how fast this course can be, and it has really become known as the place to come. If you are in shape, bet on yourself, come here and see what you can achieve on this course. And Tim took the opportunity to look around this course with a bit more traffic on it on Friday and to show you the highlights of the course coming up.
Well, here we are at the start of the 25th edition of the Dubai Marathon. It's not built yet, as you can see, but this is where on Sunday morning the race will get underway. Almost 4,000 athletes, a record-sized field in this Dubai Marathon. I'm talking to you on Friday afternoon. It's a beautiful afternoon, warm, 25 degrees, sunny. But right now you're watching, it's dark. The race is due off in a few minutes' time. Engines are revving, everybody nervous, the training done. They've got everything prepared for this quick course. On roads just like this, the whole journey, dead flat, perfect for personal bests and hitting your targets. So this is where the athletes make their first big U-turn of the race. They'll have come from the north up there, 5 kilometres to this point where they make a big U-turn, doing the opposite of what these cars are doing. In fact, they'll head back up that way on that side of the road, heading north again, and go dead straight for many, many kilometres. They'll get to the Burj Al Arab in 5K and keep going north for kilometre after kilometre. Dead straight, dead flat, great racing coming. So who doesn't know this building? The Burj Al Arab, the most famous in the UAE. Probably one of the most famous buildings in the world, actually. The athletes pass it 3 times here on the Jumeirah Beach Road. They get a good look at it each time. The last time they go past it, they've got about 3 kilometres to go. We're now at the end of their journey of 42 kilometres around the streets of Dubai. We're in the Dubai Police Academy, the parade ground no less. The athletes will have swung in off Sakim Street, a couple of corners, and then onto, ironically, what is a running track on this hard surface for their last 150 metres or so. They will swing around this final corner. They will see the finish line, glory waiting for them. And when they cross the line, there'll be food and water and shade and glory and a medal and all the other awards they deserve. I cannot wait.
Well, let's have a look at the map before they get to that finish line. They've got to negotiate these roads of Dubai. The start and finish area is slightly different from years gone by, but most of the course, this southern section where they make that U-turn I was talking about just now, is dead straight. And Paula, there they pass the Burj Al Arab for the first time. Then this northern section, they negotiated a couple of times. It's like a giant running track, about 7 kilometers long.
It is, and it gives them a perfect opportunity to kind of get to know the course a little bit better. It's slightly different than previous years if they have raced before, and coming back, once they've made that final U-turn, they will be aiming for that Burj Al Arab on the skyline to know that they're turning into the police academy.
Yep, there's the finish where our commentary position is situated right beside the finish line. The atmosphere buzzing here, about 6 or 7 minutes, and still the start time for the elite athletes, the strong elite fields in men's and women's races. Well, I mentioned that it would be dark on race morning as we got on air, and indeed it is. Just a small huddle of people there around the start line for the elite athletes. Paula, what would be going through your mind at this stage with about 5 or 6 minutes till the gun?
Last final checks, I think, rehearsing in your mind, perhaps going over the training that you've done in preparation, reinforcing those mental kind of backups of how, in which good shape you are and what you want to achieve in the course and how you plan to run the race and execute out there. Yeah, final last-minute preparations. This is the most nervous time, really, isn't it, when you're waiting to get underway?
Absolutely. There you can see 18 degrees centigrade, absolutely glorious. The wind speed negligible. It's been quite windy the last few days later in the day, but it's the humidity, the amount of water in the air that actually affects the athletes almost more than the temperature. But we understand that the humidity levels are pretty low as well, so I don't think we'd get much better conditions than these no matter anywhere in the world, quite frankly. Did you have a sort of mantra you should repeat to yourself in case those insecurities or worries came up? Sorry, Paul, let's just have a quick look at this. The top 10 times ever here. Back in 2019, Gaetano Molle running 2:03.34. Negasa was right up close to him, only 6 seconds back on that day. 2018, Mozinet Geramiu 2:04. You can see so many times as the 2:05 barrier had been broken here. And that is despite the super shoes, which only really came in about 2016, 2017. It is a fast course, and so many Ethiopians choose this race above others in the early months of the year because they know they can come here and get a really well-organized race, sympathetic conditions, wonderful conditions on the road surface itself, and that women's field speaks for itself, Paula. Look how many have broken 2:20.
It does on the men's as well. I remember that race in 2018, when so many crashed through that 2:05 barrier, and on the women's side, that 2:16.07 course record from Tigist Ketema, of course, set the bar on this course. And as we've said, conditions really are pointing to being able to hit close to that today if the women are in shape.
Well, you can hear a whistle in the background. That signifies just 5 minutes to go for the elite athletes. We're getting sound effects loud and clear from the start line there. This is where I filmed a couple of days ago, and there was virtually nothing there. There were cars whizzing up and down that section of dual carriageway. Well, now, of course, some major sections of the roads in this bustling city are closed. There's a look at the men's race field today. Some of the top athletes there. Gadisa Berhanu, of course, very much amongst the favourites. The 33-year-old is the quickest here with the best of 2:04. That was a couple of years ago in Seville. Yeah, there's so many, totally dominated by the Ethiopians, as has been the case for many years. Indeed, since 2012, 8 Dubai Marathon winners have been debutants, and so many of these athletes are debutants as well in the elite fields today. Certainly, there are good pacemakers in place, as always, in these major marathons around the globe, who will set off at a nice steady tempo to almost lay down the rules for the elite field, don't they? You have to trust those pacemakers.
You do, and in the men's race, they have been asked to go out at 62, so that would be 2:04 pace.
Fantu Worku very much amongst the favourites here. She's a 2:21 athlete. She ran her personal best in Berlin just last September. It was a fast 2:21 on a very warm day, and it's the only marathon she's ever run. She's a former track star. She's got wonderful natural speed, as Fantu Worku. And Chinelu Desi as well will be a factor. She's a 2:22 athlete. That was in February last year in Seville. That was her debut, so a lot of new, young talent that has only just dipped its toe into the world of marathon racing, really, in the women's field.
It has, and there's certainly more depth, I think, on the women's side, and we might see a bit more of a race actually going on. Two different paces being asked for at the front, 2:17 and 2:19, and then there will be a third group of pacemakers going behind that at around 2:21 pace.
Well, I make it 5:42 local time. Yes, that is a live shot of the old lunar surface, just a few miles above us, like a giant light bulb that's not working very well up in the sky above Dubai this morning. The sun will come up, though, of course, soon after the guns heard by these elite athletes, and then very shortly after they get underway, the mass field gets underway. Almost 4,000 in that mass marathon here, and then later on in the morning there's a 10K and a 4K fun run as well. Thousands and thousands, bigger numbers than ever before for this 25th edition of the Dubai Marathon. I think it's a t-shirt that many want to collect for their series of race t-shirts back home. These are the elite just jogging to the start line now. It's not cold, but it's cool.
Yeah, it's just about perfect, isn't it? As we've talked about previous years, it's been very muggy around the start time, and that higher humidity makes it tougher for the athletes. They're not able to evaporate that heat as it builds up within their body when they start running quickly as easily in higher humidity. And so it is more comfortable for them today, and that temperature not set to climb too much through this race, and no wind, as you can see from the trees, which they will be very grateful for given the length of the straights in this. You wouldn't want the wind in your face all the way up that straight, would you?
No, exactly. It's funny, I went for a run yesterday afternoon along the marina near our hotel, just a few miles from here, a few kilometres from here, and it was pretty windy, and it has been the case, hasn't it? In the afternoons it seems to come up the wind, but I think early in the morning here the air is lovely and still.
Yes, and they will, of course, have the vehicles around them. You can see how busy and crowded it gets on that road. So even if you are at the front of the race, you will get a little bit of shelter from those lead vehicles with the clocks and timing facilities on them to give that information and relay it back to the athletes. The final few strides as they make their way to behind that start gantry.
Well, I have the start due off in about a minute's time, and they're still just jogging down there towards the to get lined up behind the line. So I don't know if we're going to get underway a few minutes late here or what, but these athletes should be lined up with their engines revving on the start line and ready to go, and that doesn't look like it's the case. Actually, they're due off at 5:45, and on my phone it's 5:45 now, and there is that final whistle to drag them to the line. There's a bit of an optimist out there, I think, amongst the officials.
Well, Endris needs to finish tying his shoelaces as well.
That always helps, yeah. And last minute loo breaks as well, also very important, as the officials who have done a wonderful job. And of course, races like this are sustained by hundreds of volunteers for whom there is a massive debt of gratitude due. And yeah, you can see here the officials out in the road trying to clear, make sure that the start line is absolutely clear, and that the road for several kilometres ahead is absolutely clear. The lead officials cannot get a field underway if they know there's an obstacle or a vehicle has leached onto the course. Here we go then. 25th edition. And they're racing in Dubai in 2026. The pacemakers will go straight to the fore and try and set a tempo that is nice and steady. Paula, when you ran the first few hundred meters most of your big marathons, could you usually tell pretty early on that the legs felt good, or would it take a few kilometers before you could make judgment? I think it takes a few kilometers for the full confidence to come out. Those nerves are definitely there, and it's quite common for your legs to feel heavy and to be a little bit of trepidation in your system as you warm up. And then this first couple of 100 meters, it's kind of like blowing away those cobwebs a little bit, getting into a rhythm. I always used to like to get into that rhythm fairly quickly and kind of reassure myself that the pace was there, and then allow it to settle down. They can see the lights of the vehicles up ahead of them, and they'll make a little bit of a right and then a left onto the main beachfront road, and then they'll be on that road pretty much until they make that turn into the finish at the end. So it's an opportunity now just to settle, as you said, just to allow the pacemakers to get to the front, to be able to do their job, and to try and psychologically switch off a little bit and allow them to do the work and slot in behind. Well, many of these Ethiopian athletes will know full well they are running in the footsteps of legendary names from years gone by. Haile Gebrselassie won here 3 times in 2008, 2009 and 2010, a hat-trick of wins. Kenenisa Bekele raced here in 2017, but he didn't finish. He got injured after falling right at the start of the race. Lalisa Desisa, another massive name from years gone by, won here in his debut in 2013. He was world champion back in 2019 in the sweltering heat of Doha, not too many kilometers from here. So this race is steeped in history, and the Ethiopians know it's been a happy hunting ground for them over the years. In the previous 24 editions, 17 times it's won by Ethiopians, including the last 12 on the men's side. 7 times the Kenyans won here, and on the women's side, 18 times it's been won by Ethiopian athletes, a couple of times by Kenyans, and in the early years, 4 times by the Russians. Well, we can't see too much at the moment. I'm glad you're here, Paula, because until that moon drops a bit and the sun does come up, we're not going to be able to identify the athletes too clearly here. I think a note for next year, let's have a nice big arc light on the back of the lead vehicle shining onto the athletes so we can see their faces. There we go. Mengistu is up there towards the front end and just checking those pacemakers.
Yeah, Faiz, we can see at the front, he is one of the lead pacemakers. As we said before, they have been asked to go out at that 62 pace, so it's not a crazy pace for them to go off at here. Certainly it's become almost common, hasn't it, to see the top marathoners go out in 61 or even slightly faster for the first half, and I think it's a more sensible pace that's been asked for today. And already perhaps we can see those pacemakers moving away a little bit, which indicates a little bit of reticence from the rest of the field to go with that quicker pace at this stage in the race.
Well, as you can see, although the light isn't great, apologies for that, it will improve, of course. There's quite a big pack here, and many of whom are debutants. I mentioned Mengistu just now, that's Mamo Mengistu Alemu. He's one of the debutants who are feeling their way into the world of marathon racing, and they will be just tucked in behind the pacemakers, behind perhaps 1 or 2 of the more experienced racers. And I mean, I suppose in racing terms, it makes a lot of sense, Paul, if this is your first ever marathon, to just slot in behind, pick somebody who's experienced and follow them for the first few kilometers and watch their moves and learn on the hoof, almost literally.
Absolutely. I mean, I think so many of the Ethiopian athletes spend a lot of time training at home in big groups and learning from the more experienced runners, and Dubai has become known as a place that debutants can come and learn very, very well in their first race. As we mentioned, 8 of the men's previous winners have been debutants, so they've won on their debut and have benefited from following the lead and the example of more experienced runners, particularly during the first half, not getting carried away, and then allowing that strength and pedigree to come through over the second half of the race and be rewarded with those quick times. Less so on the women's. A bit more experience has told on the women's side and fewer debutante winners.
Well, I can tell you the first kilometre split we've got is 2:55, and that is just over 2:03 pace, so they are on course record schedule in these very early stages. We can't read anything into that, of course. The projected winning time actually on the system we've got here is saying 2:03 exactly. The time clicking away, and I think they've got to just past 2 kilometres. We're waiting for that second kilometre split to come through, but it is very quick. There's no doubt about that. Pacemakers have got to keep cool heads. They mustn't get carried away. 62 minutes is the target time for halfway for the pack of 3 pacemakers leading the first group round. Let's hope they get it right. Let's hope there is a nice big pack tucked in behind them with plenty in reserve as they get to halfway, so that they can hold something back for the latter stages. Just marking your cards really in terms of the race technology, the footwear technology. Of course, the shoes do help athletes this day and age. This generation of footwear does enable the athletes to fatigue more slowly, and they stay stronger into the latter stages of the race. That is one of the advantages of the footwear within on the track for middle and long distance races, or on the roads for half marathons and marathons. Athletes seem to fatigue less, and they come back very strongly in marathons. Who knows, maybe we'll go on 62 minutes today and come back with a negative split. The second kilometre, by the way, 3 minutes exactly after a 2:55 opener, and if they were to maintain this tempo, well, they would be well inside a course record schedule. 3 minutes equates to 2:06 and a half per kilometre, so nice and steady at the moment. 2:55 that opener, and then a 3 minute second kilometre.
Yeah, definitely just taking the time to settle into the pace. You can see almost single file procession, and that isn't because there is any wind out there. That is kind of settling into the early pace and not getting too carried away at this stage in the race, saving faster running for later. And as you said, with a lot of debutants in this field and a lot of men actually in search of form that has been not there for the last couple of years. There are a fair number that have run very fast times, but a couple of years ago, and so trying to rediscover that form in these early stages and settling in behind the athletes ahead of them.
Well, there never has been, as yet, a world record in Dubai, but just a nod to the existing world record on the men's side, 2 hours and 35 seconds. People have been talking now for what? Going on 3 years since Kelvin Kiptum, the late Kelvin Kiptum. How sad was that? He died soon after breaking the world record in Chicago back in October 2023. The Kenyan ran 2 hours and 35 seconds. And there's been talk of the 2 hour barrier going, but it's, at the moment, so far, proving pretty elusive, the 2 hour barrier. And I think it does underline, too, just how good Kelvin Kiptum was when he ran that day. I think he ran negative splits. He came back with an insanely quick second half. He is with us no more, so sadly. The course record, I remember, 2:03.34. They're on schedule for something around that at the moment here. It was the fastest ever debut back in 2019 when Getane Tamere Mola ran that time, 2:03.34. So if we can get anything down around the 2:04, 2:05 range today, that would be very special.
It would indeed, and it's building and building for that. You mentioned Kelvin Kiptum and the potential that he indicated and suggested to come, and sadly we will never get to find out what he was ultimately capable of, but the negative splits that he demonstrated in that race certainly pointed to the 2 hour barrier not being too far away. But again, how close they have come since, and knocking on that door for a little while only goes to underline just how significant a performance that would be to break that 2 hour barrier in an official race.
Well, 2:57 for the third kilometre, so it's settling down now. 2:55, then a 3-minute split, and then a 2:57, which is just about perfect. If they were to maintain that, and of course they're averaging now about 2:57, that would bring them home in 2:04.29. And they've had to negotiate a couple of twists and turns so far. The women's field, by the way, we will of course pick up on the top female athletes as the race gets underway and as the light improves somewhat, of which there isn't a great deal at the moment. By the way, that distance mark you can see at the bottom of the screen in that caption, that's completely wrong. I don't know why it's lagging, because there's nearly 10 minutes on the clock. They're way past 3 kilometres now, so that's a bit of a concern. I presume that will get updated.
Yeah, I mean, just for information, the 3K was passed, as you said, in 8:52, so they are clearly through that marker, and the turnover and the cadence of these top athletes. Many of the top marathon athletes actually have quite a high cadence, and they don't spend long at all on the floor, but regularly do bounce off that and have that turnover, moving quickly and very efficient in the upper body. Not too much wasted movement there. Eyes focused on the heels of the athlete in front of them.
Yes, I think the actual visibility for the athletes out there is considerably better than we're getting on our pictures here. But it's more important that they can see each other and not be bumping into each other than it is that we see them well. Predicted race time 2:03.50 in that men's field at the moment. That would be superb. The fastest time in the world this year was set in Doha 2 weeks ago in Qatar, in the Qatari capital. Tamarat Tola, the Olympic champion from Paris a couple of years back, ran 2:05.40. So we're on schedule at the moment for a world best by almost 2 minutes. Very early stages, 11 minutes on the clock, but it's promising.
It is, and for so long Dubai has been known as the marathon to set the bar for the year ahead. It is, of course, a little bit later than normal this year for the 25th anniversary, 25th racing of this marathon. A couple of years off during the COVID pandemic time, and now back celebrating their silver wedding anniversary with a slightly later time and hoping to reclaim that fastest times for the year so far.
Well, there they go. They've just passed the 4 kilometre split. I had that at about 11:54. Let's wait and see what comes up for 4K. 11:50, the time at 4 kilometres. So, again, another split there of, 2:58. So, yeah, if they just keep clicking these through at around 2:56, 2:58, a little bit under 3 minutes per kilometre, then that'll be fine. If they were going for 2:10, which in the old days was the benchmark of real world class, that would be 3:04 per kilometre. But because of the advances in technology, not just the footwear, but one or two other incremental factors as well, we have to really nowadays, Paula, shift everything down, shift the dial down a couple of minutes, don't we? So really, if you're not running in the 2:7s or quicker these days, it's difficult to say you're world class, and you will not feature in major marathons.
Yeah, absolutely. The bar has been moved, and I think that's fine. It's great to have those advancements. It's not just the shoe technology, as you talked about. It's also the fueling has improved vastly over the years. I still think there needs to be a little bit of a rider in comparison with previous times, and those times that were run before shoe technology and before the improvements in the fueling need to get the recognition that they deserve. I'm thinking particularly the likes of, we talked about going out in 61, Steve Jones going out in 61 way back in 1985 and holding on to run a world record that day would be so much easier to hold on with the technology that is available today, and that fueling is all important. The human body, of course, possesses enough fuel reserves to get to around about the 20-mile marker, and further than that, running very, very quickly, you need to take on that fuel during the race, and the gels and drinks available today are much, much more efficient at getting into your system and delivering that vital energy.
When you ran your first marathon, presumably you'd experimented with the fueling and learning to drink while you're running, which in itself is a bit of a skill, but did you learn a great deal in that first marathon that you then changed and tweaked and improved upon for your second and third marathons and so on? Were you learning all the time? Or did you get it right, dead right, the first one?
Not really. I think I was very lucky with the support that I had, the nutritional advice going into my first one, and it worked. The second thing that worked was running negative splits, and I learned that was a nicer way to run the marathon, or certainly an enjoyable way for the first time. Absolutely loved it from start to finish. So those were things that I tried to carry on with moving forward, and I think when you find a routine that works for you, sticking to that is important. I did change it at certain times depending on the conditions as well, and I'm sure the athletes will be used to doing that. If it's a very warm race, as we've seen in championship races in particular, you need to make sure that the electrolyte concentration is higher.
They just passed 5K. I got it unofficially at about 14:43. So, and you can see the predicted time there. It's just slipped outside 2:05. We mustn't read too much into that. There it is, 5K, 14:49 is the official split. And 14:49, when I turn to my trusty ragged chart, if they maintain this tempo, 14:49, they will come home, in almost exactly 2:05. So it's a nice, healthy tempo that's being maintained at the moment. And so often, of course, in major races these days, Paul, negative splits are being seen. It's been the case for 3 or 4 years now as the shoe technology has improved. Negative splits meaning you go out at a certain time for halfway, let's say 62 minutes, and you do the second half slightly quicker. If you run the second half slightly quicker, that's called a negative split.
And yeah, it has been, I think, as I've talked about, certainly I found it to be a more comfortable way to run the marathon. You're kind of pouring the energy that you've got left into the race in the closing stages, and psychologically as well, it's nice to be able to feel yourself running a little bit quicker, even though you're tiring. That drink station that they just passed, so those drink stations will come up on that side of the road for, I think, most of this course, and you'll see the athletes getting themselves into formation. They are given the details beforehand about where their bottles will be on those tables, as we see the women's race appearing on the right-hand side of your screen, and just already starting to stretch out on that side. And I think it is Van Tuwerko who is leading, slotted in behind the pacemaker.
Yes, Van Tuwerko, the pre-race favourite, the 26-year-old Ethiopian at the front of that women's field. First chance we've had to look at them. The leading women there, 5K, 16:36 for the women, which is good solid running. We'll just extrapolate for you what that suggests. 16:36. Paula can probably do it in her head without any delay whatsoever, but 5k in 16:36. Come on, Paula, what do you think that means?
Well, I think it is getting towards around that 2:17 pace.
Yeah, oh actually it's about 2:19. It's about 2:19. It's just under 2:20 tempo, so yeah, that's solid enough. I mean, there are athletes in there, plenty of them in this women's elite field who have run 1 or 2 marathons, including Fantu Work, who her personal best 2:21 when she was 5th in Berlin back in September. And she was saying very confidently at the press conference on Friday, a couple of days ago, she thinks she's in better shape. Training has gone really well since September, and she expects to run quite a lot faster here. I think probably her ambition would be to break 2:20 and then just go as far as possible under 2:20.
Yeah, she talked about the fact that the conditions were warm. I think it was 25 degrees and sticky warm in Berlin when she ran her 2:21:57 personal best, and is looking for a faster time today. She's better prepared, a little bit longer time after she took some time off to have a child and come back from that, and has talked about how much more motivated she is to get out there and put the hard training in, and also to race well.
Well, that meant this predicted race time hovering around 2:05, as you can see, with 18 minutes on the clock. Birhan, just Birhanu, that is. Gadis Birhanu Shumi, the 33-year-old, who is the quickest in the race last year. And he's up there at the front. Last year he was 8th in Prague and 2nd in Lisbon. His debut was back in 2014, 12 years ago now. But he's a very consistent athlete in the top 3 again and again. Fayesa and Tolesa are there. Tolesa, by the way, to the right of picture, he's one of the pacemakers tasked with going out at a nice steady tempo to halfway in 62 minutes. And usually these pacemakers are incentivized to go a bit further than halfway. Tuame also is one of the pacemakers there. So and Fayesa as well. So all 3 pacemakers at the front there, sheltering these athletes from any wind there may be around, and I don't think there is anything, but look to be doing a good job. And of course, one of the advantages, Paula, of them being the same nationalities, they can chat to each other, they can share thoughts, and a little bit of reinforcement and help.
Absolutely, and you might see, certainly as the race wears on, you might see one of the racers behind kind of try and chivvy the pacemakers on a little bit or ask some questions of them, but at the moment they are doing a great job, as you said, spread out across the road. The athletes are well informed as to who those pacemakers are. They know they're not racing, and they can settle in behind it. It's starting to bunch up a little bit more on that men's side, so perhaps an indication that they are wanting the pace just to ratchet up a little bit. They've taken that time to settle in, and you can see much more single file here on the women's side, settled in one behind the other. Ketema just tracking Desi ahead of her, and I think Worku is just in front of them, out of shot.
Yes, count the women's vests there. Looks like there's at least 6 or 7 up there. They will have pacemakers of their own, of course, this leading women's pack. Trusted to take them out at about 2:17 tempo is what we were told, but look, 2:20, the predicted race time for the women's field at this stage. I wonder if it gets harder. I've never run a, I've only run a couple of marathons, never ran one in the dark, Paul. I'm not sure you have, did you? Did you run a marathon in the dark? But is it harder, perhaps, in a way, to sort of feel the context and to orientate yourself when it's dark?
I think you prepare for racing, and once the gun goes, the brain knows it's racing, whatever the conditions out there. And certainly many of these athletes will have raced, of course, here in Dubai before, and it always starts in the dark, so they will be used to that. I think it's more that it becomes the norm now to ask for the pace to go out faster, when in actual fact the personal bests of the women in this race indicate that a 2:20 is a much more sensible pace to go out at. They're still going into personal best territory. They can still push on much further in the second half of the race, as we've talked about, and come back quicker. And indeed, when you see the splits coming up there, that was a much slower 4th kilometre with a 3:33 in there. and indeed for the 6th kilometre. So indicating a little bit of yo-yoing in that pace. The pacemakers have now fragmented to go with the different groups, and perhaps more sensible, instead of just asking for the quick times as other races have done, work on improving your own times first and then use that as a building point to move forward into that 2:15, 2:16 territory.
Now, the first 3 kilometres, according to that caption, each of them was 3:17, metronomic, and then suddenly there was a 3:33. And when you see that, I must admit, I am tempted to say that the kilometre markers are not in exactly the right places. And that's very common, because when they're laying out these courses, they can't just bang a post in the middle of the road. Quite often, a kilometre marker will be put on the nearest possible lamppost, but it can be 50, 70 metres out of position, and therefore it's perhaps 10 seconds wrong. And it makes the split for that particular kilometre, the time for that kilometre, look a lot slower than it actually was. So I think we take with a pinch of salt some of those splits. As we can see on the left picture now, the women's field running in single file. Maybe they are a bit more bunched.
Just to pick up, I think that is Worku further back in the pack. Apologies, I'm trying to read the names in the light. Yeah, that is indeed Fantu Worku, who has slotted back in, so she isn't up the road ahead, and that is one group in the women's race choosing to race rather than search for fast times, although there may well be some personal bests still produced from that racing outcome on the women's side. And on the men's side, still a little bit of bunching. It has thinned out a little bit. Pacemakers still at the front, doing a good job.
They're doing a great job. Yeah, the men's field, as you can see, the leading men, there's those splits, 2:55, 2:59, 2:54 for that 7th kilometre. As you can see, 8K coming up. That, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, I think that's been adjusted now, and the distance they're actually at any one point is correct. But 8K, well, that's 5 English miles if you like the old terminology. They have just gone through 8K, so we'll get that split coming up any second. But yeah, it looks like a 2:57. So they're varying around 2:55, 2:57, 2:58 these kilometres. So good pacemaking at the moment. Early stages, we mustn't pass judgment, make predictions too early, but it's looking good.
It is, and there is an extremely big pack of men there, as you would expect, in the depth of this field. There is, of course, prize money up for grabs out there, and no appearance money in this race. So if you come here, you pretty much know that you have to be in shape to be able to come and perform, and I think that's why so many concentrate on getting themselves into shape and then confirming that they will come to Dubai and race out here for what is available. We've lost one of the pacemakers at the front, have we?
Well, the pacemakers we had there earlier were Fayesa, Tuame and Tolesa. Just trying to see. Those are the actual racers. Gemeda is up there as well. It is hard with this light, isn't it? Kim Kemboy is there too. One of the very few Kenyans in this field. That's Dennis Kim Kemboy making his debut here. And that's Negasa Dekeba Bekekle, who is making his debut. He's actually run a pretty reasonable steeplechase in Nairobi a couple of years back. Only 65 minutes for a half marathon. That was in Hong Kong in January last year. So one or two names up there are broaching new ground and maybe running a little bit optimistically at this tempo. At what point, Paul, you know, if you go out through for the first half hour or so, they've been on the road 25 minutes, but say at about 30 minutes into the race, you know you're running at a pace that you just cannot sustain. It must be a difficult decision. Yeah,
but there are two factors in there as well. The athletes, of course, know the shape that they are in from training, which may be much further on than what is reflected by the stats that we have written down on paper for them. So I think you've got to back yourself. And if you are feeling good, one of the key skills of marathon racing is to be able to tune in to your own body, to have a good awareness of what you are capable of from the training that you've done and how things are feeling with your internal computer, if you like, on the day, what you feel you've got under the tank or in the tank to put out in that race, and you absolutely have to be able to tune into that. Rather than running to splits, you have to be able to be in tune with what your body is capable of on this day today and get it right out there. And so many of the athletes will be backing themselves from the training that they've put in.
Well, you can see the splits there for the women, the 3:33 and 3:24s. I think we can take those with a pinch of salt. That's probably with the kilometre markers slightly out of position. But as you can see, anything in the 3:12 to 3:17, 3:18 ranges, good solid running for these women. And 3:19 per kilometre is 2:20 tempo. So they are pretty much, apart from a couple of slower splits there, which we don't think we can take too seriously, they're pretty much on spot on 2:20 tempo.
Yeah, and you can see the group are settled in behind the pacemaker. You can see Bekele and they can see Afterwork. The main contenders that we would expect are all in that pack. They're settled in. They will be taking a little bit of an opportunity to look around and see who else is there. As we've said, many of them will train in groups together. In fact, Sophia Esefa and Tigis Getnet do train together regularly, so they will be well aware of what the others are capable of from training, and will be able to gauge off that and try and kind of relax a little bit in these early stages, settle into a rhythm, and just look around just to make sure that those that you expect are there, and gauge how they sound as well. They will be able to pick up feedback from the other athletes, breathing, perhaps even their foot strike on the road, and just gauge how well they themselves are going on that day.
Well, the men are at almost about 9.5 kilometres. Their 9th kilometre, by the way, was a 2:55, so 9K 26:31 was the split at that point, and then the 10K split will give us a really good idea of how they're going. But if we're to trust that 9K split, 26:31, just checking here on my trusty table, goodness me, 26:31, well, they're right down there at, yeah, it's almost exactly 2:04 tempo, so they really are clipping along nicely at a really steady pace in that men's competition at the moment, with almost a quarter of the distance done. It's rolling up pretty fast.
It is, and following suit behind, we can see definitely a fragmentation of these lead women into two distinct groups, each with their own pacemaker. We had been expecting perhaps three, but at the moment that does seem to be settling into those two groups, and perhaps more sensible around about that 2:20 pace for the lead of those groups.
I know race director Peter Connaughton has got high hopes and is an ambitious man when it comes to making sure that his race is one of the quickest in the early months of the year, and ideally by the end of the year one of the quickest in the world from the massive big marathons around the world. There are new territories where road racing, road running and marathon racing is expanding dramatically, like in India, where it's increasing every week, it seems, these size of races. I was at the Mumbai Marathon a couple of weeks ago. They had some 72,000 in the different races on that Sunday 2 weeks back. China, of course, is a country where there are more marathons springing up every year. And this race is finding it tougher to attract the top names. Peter Connaughton continues to do a good job, although I know he's fiercely proud of his reputation for discovering new talent. He said at the press conference a couple of days ago, he doesn't invite big names, he discovers new names, big names.
And he likes to market the race, and indeed it has marketed itself as a race to come and be discovered, hasn't it? As we talked about, if you know you're in shape, then you come here to this race, get the opportunity on a fast, flat course with a lot of experienced athletes also racing around you to be able to run quickly. There is that 10-kilometre split, 29:27. The first of the pacemakers out the front, as he should be.
Yeah, 29:27. That was a 2:56. So they are doing a great job. Now, the last 4 kilometres have been 2:54, 2:57, 2:55, and 2:56. It is brilliant. The pacemaking being done at the front of this men's race, and it looks pretty sound in the women's too, where if they are hovering around 2:20 in these early stages, then the race is more or less on schedule. Did you find, Paula, to some extent that in a marathon, training for a marathon, or sorry, racing on marathon day, you do your warm-up, you get into the race, but actually you feel more in tune with your body and moving at a more smooth, regular tempo, and everything's flowing a bit more easily after 4 or 5 kilometers when you've sort of warmed up. Even though you've done a warm-up before the gun, you warm into the race.
Yes, I definitely found it. I think also maybe it has something to do with the fact that psychologically you're very aware that you can throw away a race by going too quickly in the first 5 kilometers, 5-6 kilometers, and you can pull it back. If you go a little bit too slowly, you can pull that back later on. So I think your body is kind of putting down those brakes a little bit in those early stages to prevent you from making silly mistakes and allow yourself to kind of run into it, very aware that you can pick up the pace later on. But as I say, if you go too quickly, particularly in that first 10 kilometers, you can do a lot of damage to your race in the closing stages, and so the brain is trying to warn you not to go too quickly and to pace it.
Well, the men now at about 11 kilometers. In fact, any second now they should have the Burj Al Arab on their left. This men's field. We get a shot of them from behind here. That's the men's pack. That's the scene. If you were in there amongst them, it almost feels like you are in there racing with them on the road surface, doesn't it? But the Burj Al Arab, that famous, fabulous structure with a glorious ship's sail shape to it, a monstrous hotel poking out into the ocean. That is just to the left of these athletes now.
And from that shot, Tim, it does look as though there's been a slight injection of pace there, doesn't it? That group seemed to stretch out. As we were observing from the rear of that group, you could see the Kenyan duo of Kipkembai and Kip Kurui struggling to go with that pace, and it's certainly pushing on and thinning out a little bit at the front of this men's race.
I guess you'd expect that when athletes have seen the 10K split, and if they're debutants, or they're making their first ever marathon attempt, or indeed they're hoping to run, say, around 2:10, 2:08. When you see a 10K split, and I would imagine most of them have got a reasonable idea of the times they need to be hitting, and you realise you're running at 2:04 tempo, you probably get a bit of a mental a slap in the face, so to speak, and you say to yourself, right, this is just silly, I'm not going to be able to sustain this, I need to slow down a little bit. So maybe at 10K and at 20K you get those little adjustments where people are given a reality check.
And there we do see Kip Kosgei. Is that his compatriot just behind him? I think it is. Yeah, so they are running together and have made the decision to allow that lead pack just to pull away. The pacemakers have done a very, very good job, although there are just 2 of them left doing that at this moment. They did take some time to settle into it and pretty much hit through 11 kilometers bang on the pace that they have been asked for through the halfway point. And as you mentioned, Tim, I think they will try to go beyond that. Not sure how close to 30 kilometers they will get, but they will certainly try and to help the lead men in this race for as long as possible.
Yeah, 32.20. That last kilometre is a 2:53 unofficially. That's 11th kilometre. So 11K in 32.20. As I turn to the old chart, 32. That has them on just a click inside 2:04 pace. They're moving really nicely. You can see 35 minutes on the clock now. This is the leading women's pack, and that has whipped down a bit, but there's still, what, 5 or 6 women there, I reckon, behind the male pacemakers?
Yeah, I think so. I think there are 6, maybe even 7 women in there.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You might be right. It might be 6 or 7, but there you are. 10K. Desi, 33.08. That was the leading women.
So yeah, they picked up slightly from the first 5 kilometers, but not too much. So a steady tempo being set down comfortably in there.
Yeah, Desi there at 33.08 in the women's race at 10K. That's Anchinolu Desi Genene. She's a 2:22 athlete. She ran that in February last year, where she won the Seville Marathon down in southern Spain. It was her debut. And then later on in November, she won in Beijing as well in 2:26. So made her debut in Seville in February last year, ran 2 marathons last year, won them both. But Beijing was less than 3 months ago, so a bit of a question mark, although, about whether she's recovered or not. She does say she feels okay. She has been a half marathon specialist for the last few years, a lot of times in the 67s and 68s. So she's served her apprenticeship, I suppose, at the lower distances.
She has, and she might argue that Beijing race in November might have been run a little bit as a training run, given that it was 4 minutes or so back from her personal best, and certainly should be able to recover from that and build on top of the form that she showed there to come out here. And certainly she is racing with intent up there now, and there is are those 5 kilometer splits, just a couple of seconds, 3 seconds difference between them, so fairly steady running. And you have your lone male runner who's along for the ride, isn't he? He's trying to tack on to the back of this women's field at the moment and see if he can get himself into personal best territory. He will have started on the front of the mass field.
Yeah, those splits really impressive. The first 5K 16:36, the second 5K segment 16:33, metronomic. And of course that's what you can do on a course like this. You can, for the pacemakers and the athletes themselves, it's a little bit easier to hit really steady, consistent splits and a tempo that is the same. Whereas if you go to a course like, I don't know, Boston, say, take an extreme, where there's a massive downhill in the early miles, the early kilometers, you get some insane splits coming up, and then they hit an upslope and it changes dramatically, and that really does play with your mind and your body. And it's so much easier, I suppose, on a flat course to maintain that steady tempo and keep a nice rhythm going. Paula, just thinking of which, you ran Boston last year, didn't you?
I did, yeah. I didn't run an even tempo at all.
I'm sure
but I'm blaming that on the fact that my calf went.
Was that your first Boston?
It was my first Boston. I actually loved it.
The crowds were insane.
They were. It was a great experience. I also love being in the middle of the atmosphere of the race, and that's one of the reasons I came back to racing in those couple of marathons, was to experience the camaraderie of that mass road racing. And don't always get that in elite races, and certainly elite women's races too often. We go at the front and it's a very special experience, but it's different being in the middle of the pack. And yeah, I loved that. I didn't find the uphills too bad in Boston, but you did have to tolerate the downhills and absorb it into your quad muscles. And you're right, that is a skill that you need to be able to absorb, and on flat racing it is much easier to settle into that tempo. We are seeing a yo-yoing of the pace, as you've just seen come up on your screen, through that 12th kilometre back down to 2:52. That may be down to the placing of those markers, and better to look at the average pace over it.
I can't believe that they've changed by 7 seconds. That's a big chunk of tempo change, so to speak, when there are no significant adjustments in the up and down or the altitude of this race. But a 2:52 there, I think that's the fastest split of the race so far. So yeah, in the men's field, the 13th kilometre, we believe, was the quickest so far. It's maybe is building. They're warming to the task. We were talking a few minutes ago about how once you get into the race, you begin to feel more at home, more attuned to the rhythm. And perhaps that's what's happening in this men's race. 13K was 38.10, the split at that point. So a 2:54 is unofficially on the system we've got, but a 2:52 appeared on screen. At 13.5 kilometres now in the men's race. And that is thinning out. Now that is interesting. Goodness me, Dekeba is up there as enjoying this tempo. That's Gadisa Tafa Dekeba, I think, is a 33-year-old. He is a 2:07 athlete. Set his personal best in March last year when he raced in Wuxi. He came second. He lost by just 2 seconds, but it was a personal best by almost 3 minutes for Dekeba in that Chinese race. A massive personal best for him to get down to 2:07.
And back at the front, settled in behind the pacemakers, that is Robe and Segu on the far side. On the far side, he does have a 2:05.14 to his name. Is returning from a 4-year ban in the past couple of years, and racing with intent. Roby, though, looks keen, doesn't he, to move up alongside the pacemakers. The only man who's kind of getting slotted right behind them, as if to urge those pacemakers to pick up the pace a little bit.
Well, he was 30 back in 2015, Roby, so he's back here for the first time in 11 years. He ran 2:06 on that day, very close to his lifetime best, which was also in 2015 in Eindhoven in the Netherlands. He ran 2:05.58, but he won Venice last October. So he's still in great form all these years later at the age of 35. And it's a factor, isn't it, that a lot of athletes, when they manage their careers well, you can have a very long marathon career. If you see athletes who do 4 races in a year, and then sometimes quite often you see that they have to have the next year off, and then they come out and they run another 3 races in a year. And that doesn't make for longevity. You know, the old adage, even with the new technology in the shoes and so on, probably is that 2 marathons a year is a nice steady rhythm through year after year that you can maintain.
Yes, you might be able to push that to 3 perhaps with the new shoe technology, but certainly, I mean, Eliud Kipchoge, the master himself, has shown that age is no barrier in the marathon, and that you can keep producing, your endurance stays strong as you do get older. And in fact, a little bit of the wisdom that you accumulate from all of that racing, of course, factors in. The marathon is about knowing the distance, knowing your body, and knowing the training, and knowing how to recover between that racing and training as well. So as you do get a little bit wiser, that can come into play over the marathon distance, perhaps a little bit more than over the shorter, faster distances, certainly on the track.
Well, here's some news for you. They got to 14k in 41:05, and that adds them on schedule for almost exactly the course record, well under 2:04. They are clipping along at a fabulous pace here in Dubai. If you've just joined us in the last few minutes, you're very welcome to our broadcast. Myself, Tim Hutchins, and Paula Radcliffe, the former world record holder, with me here now for this 25th edition, the coverage here live of this Dubai Marathon in 2026. The men's field, the big pack is moving along really quickly. Some will survive this quick tempo through these first 15 kilometers or so. Others will drop away and suffer. Some won't finish. Who is going to be in which category, I wonder? Who will have a great day at the races? Who will have a solid day? Who will have a bad day? And who won't finish at all? Too early to say. We're at about a third distance now, so plenty to come. They're hoping to get to halfway in about 62 minutes. And there you are. Look at that. The predicted race time in the men's race, 2:04.09. So a brilliant job being done by the pacemakers through this first 40 minutes plus.
And as we look at the athletes trying to get onto the back of that lead group, we did see that it's still a fairly large lead group, which is great to see at this point. A lot of company for the athletes up there, a lot of gauging and assessing going on in the minds of those men at the moment, as well as to how many of those athletes are in there for the long run through this marathon this morning. How many sound really comfortable at this stage as they go through the drinks tables and pick them up on the left hand side. There's some going for water. They do have the opportunity to put in their elite drinks bottles the night before, and they will be told, as we said, where they will be set out on those tables, so they know which table they're aiming for to get their own prepared bottle. And then at either end there will be tables with just plain water as well.
They've gone through 15k in the men's race in 44:01 unofficially. That was at 2:56, but great job being done by those pacemakers. Just listen to this, last 4 1-kilometer splits: 2:56, 2:54, 2:55, 2:56. And the leading men, there it is, 44:04 is the official split at 15k. So we'll take that one as the correct one. Roby Tome Tolesa Kizimana is in there as well. The man who is another, unfortunately, the Rwandan 29-year-old who have served a ban in years gone by. He's done loads of his races in Italy. He seems to have been based there. Many half marathons in the 61, 63 minute range, Kizimana. And of course, it helps a lot if you've got good speed at 10k and half marathon. When you move up to the marathon, you're feeling that little bit more relaxed, or a little bit more comfortable with the race. He raced in the World Championships in Budapest back in 2023, and then was banned for a couple of years, very sadly. And it is regrettable when you read that on the CV of an athlete. He only came back from the ban on the 26th of October. Hakizinman has given him his full name, but he's already done 2 marathons in the last 3 months. So a 2-year ban, and then came back straight away and won Ravenna in Italy back on the 9th of November. And then a month later, he was second in Macau on the 7th of December. So this is his 3rd marathon in 3 months, straight after a ban. Keen to get back out there and start earning some money, I guess, Paula.
Yeah, certainly was, and was in shape to get back out there immediately after that ban as well, and has got himself up there amongst the lead contenders today. And from that shot, is it starting to wind up again? Because it's thinning out a little bit down the road.
Well, Tourmay there to write a picture. He is one of the pacemakers. I think the pacemakers here can go on to the full distance if they want. They can finish if they want. It's not something I'm wild about. I always think the pacemakers should be standing on the start line, and the other athletes who are planning to race the full distance are entitled to know their status. There's the main race, the mass race getting underway. Almost 4,000 in that one, the biggest field here in the Dubai Marathon by a long, long way. Much bigger than in years gone by. Race director Peter Connaughton saying a couple of days ago at the press conference they've never had 3,000 at the Dubai Marathon. They've got nearly 4,000 this year. That's what, a 30% increase, something like that.
And it's brilliant to see. It's a reflection of the rise of the running community out here in the UAE and in Dubai in particular. Many of the runners that we joined up with for a shakeout in the week on Thursday evening were talking about how the community has really got behind the marathon, loves having it, calls it their marathon, and prepares for it. And they've built their way up through those 4-kilometer races to the 10-kilometer race, and then now working towards building up for this marathon and feeling confident enough to get out there and take part in their marathon. Many of them with the fueling and hydration packs as well to keep themselves going through this race, wisely not starting too quickly in these opening stages.
Well, I bet a lot of them have to train during the day and in the warmth of the well, this is the coolest month, of course, in Dubai, but it's still warm, around 24, 25 degrees during the day. I bet a lot of them cannot believe their luck with these cool temperatures here today. And, I mean, I've been coming here for a few years, Paula, and it is probably 3 or 4 degrees cooler than usual here in Dubai on this late January Sunday morning, and rather glorious. Is it late January?
It is now the 1st of February.
It's the 1st of February, okay. All right, I'm only 24 hours behind the rest of the planet. Oh, pinch punch first of the month. Thank you very much indeed. If you could have seen that, folks, you've no idea what I'm going to do back. Anyway, 48 minutes on the clock. Men's race clipping along left of picture. They're big pack, still in touch with this very quick tempo. They're moving at sub 2:04 speed. And the women's race to the right of picture, about 5 or 6 up there, we think, in that women's lead pack. We hope to get better pictures once the sun comes up. We can see more clearly. But they're moving at just under 2:20 tempo. So both races working wonderfully at the moment, with about 1/3 of the distance done. Long way to go yet, but it's promising.
It is, and the women working together behind those pacemakers. Most of the main contenders are slotted into that group. You can see Katema, you can see Lemnem Hailu, I think that is, who has indicated a lot. Very, very good pedigree on the track. 14:34, 5,000 meter time to her name, and sub 30 minutes over 10,000 meters, and probably a lot expected of her over the marathon distance. And now stepping up to try and make this. She did run in Berlin, wasn't able to finish there in those very, very warm conditions. Perhaps went back to the drawing board a little bit, and now comes in to this marathon a little bit better prepared. Raced very well in Iraq also last year.
Yes, the leading women is Mulia Dekebo Haile Mariam, to give her full name, the 27-year-old Ethiopian, 49.29 at 15K for the women. But Dekebo, well, interesting athlete, and running her 9th marathon here. She ran here back in 2018 when she was 10th in 2:26. She's improved a minute or so on that now, a couple of years ago, running in Houston in the USA with 2:25. But she's run many good half marathons and moved up to the marathon in 2018. but hasn't been as consistent as she would have liked at the full marathon distance. She's failed to break 2:30 in 4 of her 8 marathons. She's gone out very optimistically today, though, Paula, at sub 2:20 tempo for an athlete with the best of 2:25.
She has, and I'm watching Anjanalu Desi, who made sure that she got her bottle. In fact, lost a little bit of ground from the position that she had been in at the front of that pack, and you can see now offering that drink around. Not sure they've all taken on the opportunity to take on fuel and fluid at this point, and that's certainly the experience of Desi, showing that she recognizes how important it is to get those carbohydrates into your body, and to make sure, as we look further down the field, there's Daniel with her bottle. A number of those women do have their fluid bottles, as we talked about. It will be their prepared solutions that they will have practiced with in training. They will know that that works for them, that won't upset their stomach, and it will only be water that they would take outside of their own bottles, unless they are with a training partner perhaps and know exactly what's in the drinks bottle. It happens where you don't get your bottle in a marathon. The key is not to panic and to take the next best thing if you can, I think.
Did you miss your bottles very often?
Not very often, but I think it's a scenario you have to be ready for and prepared for. A couple of times my bottle wasn't on the table, and then
Sabotage?
Not sabotage. I think it was just mistake. I know nobody else took it because I was the first one to the table and it wasn't there. So I think it's rare that you would take someone else's bottle. Most of the athletes have a respect for the other runners.
And if you're in the lead in a marathon, you come to the special drinks table where your bottle should be and it's not there. I think I'd probably come out with a few expletives.
I was quite cross.
Where is my bottle, in a slightly stronger language?
You can't waste the energy on getting annoyed, though. You've got to stay calm and take the next best thing. And most of the marathons will put some kind of carbohydrate drinks out on the course as well as water. So then it's weighing up whether it's more important to take that even though you've not particularly trained with it, or just to wait for the next one. When they are every 5 kilometers, if the conditions aren't too warm, you can sometimes get away with just waiting for your next bottle.
You're a more patient lady than I would be, I must admit, in those situations. 15K was 49.29 for these this women's field, and I'm just looking at what that translates to. It translates to 2:19.15. So at 15K, just past third distance, they're on well below 2:20 tempo in this women's race. They are moving well. There's no doubt about that. You can see Dekebo there with the red armbands to write a picture, or Dekebo actually in the middle of the picture. I'm just trying to see who that is on the far side with the red armbands.
I think that is Desi with the orangey red armbands.
Is it?
And then Lemnem Hailu behind her, Fantaworku slotted in on the far side. Katema with the more exaggerated arm movement and the Adidas shorts t-shirt on this side. And then at the back it is the experience of Abubakar Afewerki, who has a 2:23.33 personal best to her name from here in Dubai in 2015, and still running well at the top level.
The right-hand picture of the men's field there, you can see the Burj Khalifa in the background, extreme right of picture, and gives us a good idea that the sun is gradually coming up over the horizon, rising in the eastern skies of Dubai, of course. But that's a big men's pack, very tightly bunched there, left of picture. They've gone through 18K in 52.50, a 2:55 getting them to 18K, so really good pacemaking. These splits again and again are hitting the spot, and that will build confidence in this pack. They will be aware, I'm sure. There will be information being shouted at them from the lead vehicle. There will be plenty of information for them. The pacemakers they have to trust, and they are doing a good job. And of course the advantage is that almost exclusively this pack, the men's and women's races actually, but this pack in the men's race is Ethiopian, and the pacemakers are Ethiopian, and they can be exchanging messages. Did you used to communicate with pacemakers, Paula, in your races, or did you clam up?
I think there were only a couple of times I actually had pacemakers that stayed with me for a significant portion of the race. Back then it was much harder to have the depth on the women's side to get the pacemakers in there. So yeah, when I ran the world record, I had the Kenyan pacemakers alongside me and was able to communicate a little bit with them. I tried to concentrate on racing them, actually, and I think perhaps that's what many of the strategies will be out there today as well, to almost see them as another racer, but a racer that you can slot in behind and trust to get you through on the right pace. And they are doing a great job today of gradually winding up the pace, both in the men's race and the women's race. We are seeing not silly pace through the first 10 kilometers, and then it's picked up through to 15 kilometers and then on towards the 20k as we are approaching now.
Yeah, this men's field, they've gone through 19k with a 3:01 split. Now that's interesting. That's the slowest split for a long time, if it's to be believed. Hopefully it's just a mispositioned kilometre marker. But 20k is a couple of minutes away for this men's field. As you can see them moving well now. And it's still, what, about 15 strong, this men's elite pack. And there's Dekeba. Is this the chasing pack in this men's field?
I think this is certainly towards the rear of that lead pack. The men sticking to their own tempo here, eyes focused on the road ahead, and the other runners up ahead. Yes, it's the back of that lead group.
Yeah, Dekeba, that's Negasa Dekeba Bekekle. He's the man I mentioned earlier, who's an 8:35 steeplechaser. He's only run a 65-minute half marathon, ran that in the Hong Kong half marathon back in January last year, so a year ago. Although Hong Kong, of course, usually the conditions, racing conditions there are very hot and humid. Quite a tough place to go and race. Tolesa is there. He is a pacemaker, Tolesa, so he has dropped back, I think, to maybe help this.
No, that is
we're at the front end now.
We're at the front end again with Roby back there. We did get a quick glimpse of Yassine Hadji as we moved up through that lead pack. We think we mentioned him early on, didn't we? World Under-20 silver medalist, over 5,000 meters on the track, and indeed won the World Cross Country Junior race that year, so has the pedigree. Has not raced a lot of marathons, only 2 marathons, but raced well so far and trains with Tamarat Tola, who has that world best performance so far this year from the Doha Marathon earlier, and Cissé Lema in that group. So got a lot of top athletes to learn from in training around him.
They're only 100 meters or so from the 20-kilometer point. Tolesa and Roby there up alongside them. Tolesa is a pacemaker. Roby is a racer. Just looking for Roby on my list here. And of course, this is a big field. Sometimes we're sitting here in our commentary position, we're struggling to find the names. Yeah, he's number 5. Deribe Robamelka, 3rd here back in 2015. He's the man who I mentioned earlier, won Venice just last October. He's familiar with this course, though. He'll know that the conditions here are always superb. He's a 2:05 athlete. This is the back of the elite group. Athletes just beginning to drop away and struggle here. Mateb.
That is Senabata as well, dropping off that lead group. Was a late addition to this race, so travelled here, committed and went with this lead group, and then now just struggling to hold on to that pack, as we see there. Perfect example of having a slightly different drinks bottle to be able to pick it out on those tables. Used to be a lot of work went into decorating those bottles to make sure that you recognise yours.
Well, there we go, 58.52 at 20k. That is the official time for 20k, 58.52. So they are very much on schedule here for something down around 2:04. Perhaps a little bit worrying. The last 2 1-kilometer splits have slowed a little bit from a very regular 2:55, 2:57 tempo. The last 2k splits we've been given have been 3:01 and 3 minutes exactly. But if at 28k, 58.52, if we can extrapolate anything from that, it does mean they're on just outside 2:04 now, 2:04.07.
And you can see a little bit of concern, a little bit of chatting going on between the 2 men who've done a great job so far with the pacing. Tolesa just trying to chivvy Tuame on, or have they decided to perhaps divide? One go with a faster pace and Tuame stay back with a slower pace behind. I'm not sure who it is asked for Tulesa to go on, because they don't seem to be keen to go with him now that he's done that. But certainly there was some chatting going on amongst the two pacemakers and a decision being made for one to go on and crack on at the pace that's been requested, and the other to stay with the pack and the pace that they seem to want to run at.
That's a big surge from Tulesa. Goodness me, as Paula said quite rightly, there was a little chit-chat there. And then Tulesa just lengthened his stride and pushed away, almost as like a little experiment for the pack behind to see who would go with him. He's on his own now, 6 or 7 meters clear. And this will sort them out, the chaff from the wheat, so to speak. Who's feeling good here? Segu is looking a little reluctant to go with this, although perhaps they're closing up on him. Akisi Nimana of Rwanda. He's there in the blue. Segu and Giletta is moving up now. They're gradually almost being tempted, like a carrot, just a few meters up the road, being tempted to go with Tulesa. But it's almost single file now, because this is a significant point. They're coming up towards halfway. They're only, there's 21k, so they're within about 100 meters of halfway. And Tulesa may be here realizing that they need to pick it up a little bit. They were looking for 62 minutes at halfway, Paula. It's within a few seconds of being perfect.
It's not too far off, is it? And I think he did a very, very good job, Tulesa, of realizing that that pace was dropping, that perhaps the second of the pacemakers was not able to work with him on maintaining that tempo for the other athletes. And so he is now knuckling down to that task on his own, and the field are gratefully going with him.
Well, this is where they were having that little chat. Look, glancing across there, Tulesa, one of the allotted pacemakers for the lead group. They were looking for 62 minutes at halfway. Tuame to the left of picture there, I think, was perhaps saying, I'm not feeling that great, you kick on.
Yeah, I think he was. I think he was saying, I'm not able to go with this. You need to push on. I will drop back and try and help the chasing group here. And Tulesa is doing a good job checking in with his watch regularly, and there has been that response from the field behind, but it's certainly been a response led by Segu, who at the front of that single file behind him, trying to get back into the slipstream of the pacemaker. That is what he's supposed to do, is sit in front and be able to take the wind and allow athletes to just concentrate on the heels.
Well, they have gone through halfway. The time there officially 62:06 in this 25th edition of the Dubai Marathon. 62:06, that kilometre through to 21k at 2:58. So it did slow for 10 minutes or so, a 3:01, then a 3 minutes, and then a 2:58, leading up to 21k. And I think Tulesa, that's Ayensa Alemu Tulesa, what a good job he's done. He's taking on the burden of pushing it through this next 5k. And it does get tougher, of course. Past halfway, you begin to feel a little bit of fatigue. You know you've got a long way to go, and athletes start reassessing their day at the races. There's the lead pack in the women's field. And it's nice, Paula, that we've got a great race building here too. You know, they're coming towards halfway, and that's quite a big group.
It has. We've lost one, have we? I think there were 7 women in there earlier, and now I make it 6, but doing a good job of working together. There's Lemon Hailu still in there, Ketema is still there, Dekebo, and I think that's still Desi with the orange arm sleeves on the far side, Fantuworku, and it's now Adugna, so it's Afterwork that we've lost, is it?
Yeah, Ketema is there too, right in the centre of picture. Is this the chasing pack here? Yeah, this is the chase group in the women's field. 2, 4, 6, 8. This is about 8 or 9 strong, this chasing group. They are how far behind the elite group? It'd be great to get a shot from the motorbike cameras to see if we can see where they are in relation to the lead group. We don't know whether they're 30 meters back or 200 meters back at the moment. I don't know if our director can help us with that, to get an idea from this camera of where this chase group is in relation to the lead group in the women's field. But they are still moving well. I mean, I'm sure way below 2:30, this chase group.
Yeah, I would think so. There are a number of experienced runners in there. As you mentioned, Afterwork is towards the back of this group here and working together with the other women.
Here is the... is this the lead group again?
This is the lead group for the women.
Oh,
you can see back down the field, down the road behind, and the lights of the vehicle leading the next group. And yes, that is fairly significant, isn't it, Tim? It's a good couple of 100 meters.
It is, yes. Decabo, the tall figure there to the left of that group. Desi with the red armbands. Decabo, by the way, is the athlete who, as I said, is best of just outside 2:25. She's heading here, if she can maintain this, for a 5-minute personal best. She's having a great day so far. A little bit of break up in the group there as they go to that specialist drink station. Remember, these elite athletes have their own special drinks on those tables every 5K, and they have to practice that in training and get the pickup of the bottles right. But quite often you see a slowing as athletes look for their bottle. Did you used to slow a bit at tables, Paul, or did you practice holding your form and your speed?
I practiced running past the table. There's two skills. You have to practice finding your bottle and picking it up at speed, and then you have to practice drinking from it at speed as well. So I used to do it on my tempo runs when you're actually racing at running at marathon race pace, and practice grabbing hold of that bottle and drinking. A lot of the Japanese athletes actually had a technique of they would have a metal hoop attached to the bottle, so they could slide their arm through that hoop and run on with the bottle. You are allowed to attach to the bottle as well any gels or anything, in fact, that you want to consume, solid-wise or semi-solid, as well as what's in the bottle. It just needs to be attached to it. And now we see a fragmenting as we come out of that drink station. There's been a slight injection of pace at the front. Ketema trying to bridge that gap back to, I think it is the lead duo have got away, and Desi is certainly one of them. There is a Dugna who had a breakout win in Dublin on her debut just in October and struggling to go with that lead group. It is Decabo alongside Desi at the front.
Well, we got the 20K split, 65-52, and it was Decabo, Desi, Worku and Ketema, the four leading lights at that one. Worku, of course, the pre-race favourite, the 26-year-old who was 5th in Berlin in 2:21 in her debut, running her second ever race here. Decabo there, the tall figure nearest the camera. She's the 2:25 athlete, running her 9th marathon, formerly a very good half marathon athlete. And Halo, here is Halo, looks a little isolated. Is she just behind this group? Dugna is there as well. She's a 2:26 performer. Ibisi Dugna Idesa. She won Dublin, actually, the Dublin Marathon back in late October, so only a couple of months back. I wonder if she's freshened up. But there are those kilometre splits in the women's race, as you can see, and again an indication of just what a good job the pacemakers are doing. Truly metronomic. I mean, 16:36, 16:33, 16:21 and 16:23. The interesting trend there, Paula, is that the second 10K is a lot quicker than the first 10K.
Yeah, and that for me is smart racing from these women. It's not getting too carried away in the early stages and gradually winding it up as the race wears on. It's setting this women's race up for substantial personal bests for the women in this pack at the moment, if they can stay with this, and it's running it in a sensible way. We were just watching Lemnem Hailu trying to hold on to the back of that pack, and I think she has succeeded in latching back on after that stretching out at the drink station. There we can see just getting herself back onto the pack. She is the athlete that I talked about, who is essentially making her debut. She made her debut in Berlin, wasn't able to finish in the tough conditions there, probably learned some lessons, went back to the drawing board, is used to racing well here out in the UAE, did run a 68.07 in RAC, and has now got herself back into that lead group and doing the smart thing for a debutante, settling in behind the more experienced marathon racers.
Well, interestingly, the men 22nd kilometres at 2:52. That equals the fastest split of the race so far. So there was a little bit of an injection of pace there. in the men's race. They got to 23k in 67.34. That was a 2:53. So a 2:52 and a 2:53, the last 2 kilometre splits in the men's race. They really have kicked on. There's the women's half marathon time, 69.27. Almost perfect.
Absolutely spot on, and as I was saying, I think it's sensible racing from these women, and you can still see there's a pack of those 6 women in there, very competitive. Some looking around from the lead pacemakers, as there should be, in terms of gauging, is the pace that they're setting down correct? How much appetite is there to keep winding that up gradually, or do these women want it to settle? They will take guidance from the women at the forefront of that pack, so notably from Desi and Dikebo.
Well, the picture's so much clearer with the daylight. Who'd have thought? The athletes, of course, though, will be so appreciative of the earlier start time and the cooler conditions. Then they're taking full advantages of it today in both the men's and women's races in this 25th edition of the Dubai Marathon. They're building nicely. Just a reminder for you, the men got to halfway in 62.06. The target was 62 minutes, so that is just about perfect. And the women's half marathon time, 69.27 at the front end. Again, almost exactly on 2:19 tempo, and I think they might pick it up a little bit, Paula.
I think they already are. I think when you look at that shot, we get a great view of what it's like to be, what do they say, on the train. You jump on the back of the train, don't you, being led by the pacemaker, and you have the men perhaps feeling the best and the strongest at this moment slotted in behind that pacemaker, and then the others settling into that slipstream. And what you want to try and do, as it's starting to hurt a little bit more in this race, hopefully not too much at this stage, is really focus on the heels of the athlete in front and not expend too much mental energy in kind of moving around the road. Just focus on getting into that slipstream and focusing only on one foot in front of the other. At this stage, it's very simple.
Well, look at this single file now. They really are shifting through this third quarter of the race, which is a clear indication that the acceleration has gone in to Lesa, the man responsible for it. What a wonderful job he's done as a pacemaker through to halfway and beyond. And he checks his clock and then his watch again there, and always gets his head down and lengthens his stride, increases the tempo. He's thinking on his feet. It's really good to see. And the other athletes will be appreciating this, Paula. You know, it's a great job he's doing, although the burden seems to be all on him now.
It does. He probably does train with a lot of these athletes as well, so he will know what athletes in that pack are capable of. He certainly knows the pace that they've asked for, and as you said, he's doing a very good job. As the lone pacemaker left now, he's trying to encourage someone else to come alongside him, perhaps give him a little bit of a break to be able to go a little bit further, or is he going to step aside now once he's got them through? I think he is dropping back. Now he's gotten through that 25-kilometre marker. That marker passed in 73.26 there.
Yeah, 73.26 is the official split. And that was about a 2:55, that 25th kilometre. So he's teasing them along here, trying to make sure they push hard through this third section of the race, the third quarter of the race. At 14:32, those last 5Ks, 14:33 officially. There it is. There are those splits for the 5K splits in this men's marathon. And, well, that is really encouraging. It's the quickest of the race so far. They went out in 14:48, then a 14:39. Look at that, getting quicker and quicker through the 15K, 14:35. That 14:51 to 20K is why there were slightly worried faces approaching halfway, and Tolesa took the responsibility, grabbed the bull by the horn, so to speak, and gave it a good shake. And that's the result between 21 and 25, or 20 and 25K. He's run 14:33. That is aggressive running. I hope they don't pay for it, because that's quite an acceleration.
It did, and it decimated that lead group, which was a large lead group up to that point. And the last 5 kilometres, we have seen it whittle down, and now it is left to Galeta at the front. Or I think he's at the front of this lead pack. He looks around to see who he's got for company. He does have Segu is still there alongside him. I know Haji is still in that lead group. But there aren't as many men for sure. There is the lone Rwandan still in there. Hazikumana. There's that Fantahun at the back and Melak.
Yes, it has been sorted out by that last 5K. I think it's probably what's reduced them a little bit. Degefa and Dekeba now. Are they in survival mode? Are they comfortable? This is the chasing group. You have to be thinking on your feet. You have to try and manage your race. Germa Degefa making his debut. Dekeba as well, trying to cope with the realization that this lead group are beginning to ease away. And there it is, 5 athletes there. Now, has Tolesa gone? Has the pacemaker gone at this stage? They've gone through 25Ks, done a wonderful job. Giletta up at the front end there. Haji is there as well. I'd say Yasin Haji Hayato, a 30-year-old Ethiopian. Haji to the left of picture in that shot. He's a 2:07 performer. Ran that when he was 5th in Frankfurt last October. It was a personal best for him. He ran 2 marathons. He was 3rd in Rabat last year in 2:09, but it's a notoriously slow course. Paula mentioned that he's a former world junior cross-country champion, coached by Gemadu Dedefo, one of the foremost Ethiopian coaches. He's in what's probably the strongest marathon training group in the world. It includes the Olympic champion from Paris in the marathon, Tamirat Tola, and Cisse Lema, who won the Boston Marathon back in 2024. And I guess training with great athletes and being able to match them day in, day out gives you enormous confidence, Paula. So, you know, when you've got a coach who's got a record of success again and again, and you know the formula is right, it must give you enormous confidence.
Absolutely. You can put that trust in the coach, and Haji will have trained alongside Tamirat Tola and then watched Tola go and run as he did in Doha and establish the fastest times so far this year, and he will know what he's capable of in relation to the great Tamirat Tola, who will be a huge inspiration to him as well. But when he's getting close to him in training, a part of him might be thinking, well, I'm in better shape, so I can go out and better that and run a little bit quicker. And he's certainly running with more confidence the more that this race wears on. Just behind him in the yellow vest, that is Jirigna Galeta. He doesn't actually have a marathon time to his time, nor indeed a fast half marathon, but he has run a 63:06 at altitude in Ethiopia, and certainly is another man who perhaps knows from the training coming into this race that he's in shape. And we can see from those splits there's been a little bit of a settling as that pacemaker stepped aside, and now a gathering, and the men look around them to see who is keen to push the pace on, and will that allow this group to grow a little and other men to work their way back onto the back of this lead group.
Well, you really hope, don't you, that because the pacemaker's dropped out, the pace doesn't slacken. But so often we see that is the effect of a pacemaker dropping out. They've done all the work. They take on the burden of holding a nice high tempo. And when they're gone, nobody else wants to take on that role. Haji here, moving really well. Haji Hayato. He's a great track racer too, as we see that beautiful shot. Look at that structure. I mean, it is truly magnificent. The Burj Al Arab easing out into the ocean. It has to be one of the most photographed structures in the Arabian world. I know that the Eiffel Tower in Paris is apparently the most photographed structure in the world. Having been to the Taj Mahal, I think if that was more accessible, it would probably take over that title, because it is the most glorious building I've ever seen, the Taj Mahal. But the Burj Al Arab is right up there in the top 3 or 4. Surely it's magnificent. Haji working really hard. It checks his watch. He's almost like an unofficial pacemaker here. He's doing all the work through this 3rd quarter. But just like I remember Brendan Foster saying many, many years ago that in a 10,000 meters, 25 laps of a running track, he'd try and get to 20 laps without really thinking about racing, and then he'd start racing. Maybe in a marathon, Paula, you need to get to what, 30k, 35k before you start thinking about racing?
I think you need to be thinking about your strategy at this point, but yes, actually thinking about what you've got left. You can't really fully gauge that until you are in those stages. So I don't think you want to be taking huge risks at this point. It has to be something that's very calculated, that you know you've done in training, and that's why I talk about being in tune with your body and knowing what it's capable of on a given day. And Haji's trying to do that now. I'm watching Hakizimana, who's lost his number from the front, just yo-yoing up and down. He's done that a couple of times. He's trying to push on the pace, but then isn't comfortable being at the front. Is he holding his hip a little bit or just trying to straighten out his vest there? And Melak further back down is another debutant out there. He was looking around as if to say, well, somebody take it on, because it feels like it should be faster, but I'm a debutant and I don't want to be doing that at this point.
For the last kilometre, 3 minutes, so it had slowed a little bit the last 2 or 3 kilometres. The 26 kilometre or the 3:06, they get to 27k with a 3-minute split. In fact, we're seeing 2:57 on our computers, but we're seeing 1:19.26 at that point, and that was a 2:57 unofficially. So the pace is still strong, but Hakizimana of Rwanda, the 29-year-old, who is a 2:08 athlete, could be heading for a big personal best here today. He's on schedule for something just outside 2:04 in his 8th marathon start. He, in the light blue there, left of picture, has taken on the burden of kicking on through this 3rd quarter. And there's the pacemakers for this elite women's field. And
we've lost one, haven't we?
We have lost one, yeah. It should be Dekebu, Desi, Worku, Ketema, and Adugna.
Adugna's gone.
Adugna's gone. Is she, or is that her in the background there? There's still
Desi.
5 there. There's Desi at the back.
There's Fantu Worku at the front with Dekebu, who has been right there for most of this race. Lemnem Hailu slotted in just behind them, and it is now long-time leader and Chinalu Desi, who is the woman struggling to go with us at the moment, although that may be a bit of thinning out to ensure they get their drinks bottles through this 25-kilometre mark. 25 kilometres passed in 1:22.13.
Yeah, and turning to the trusty chart, 1:22.13, that equates to 2:18.54, so they are just hovering around 2:19. Here's that U-turn at the southern end of the long section. They're heading north again now, this lead women's pack, for the final time. 1 hour 22 on the clock. They've still got a long way to go. And you can see Desi there, left of picture in the red armbands, trying to get back on terms with this group. They've grabbed their drinks bottles there. She is holding a drinks bottle. She's probably the smallest in this lead group, but Worku looking very comfortable indeed, isn't she, there on the far side. Fantu Worku Taye, to give her full name, who made her debut in Berlin and ran so well for 5th place with a 2:21 clocking.
You can see another picking up of that 5 kilometres. It's sensible running. It's a smart, small pickup each time. And as we focus on Desi, I think her experience is really showing in this race. She made sure that she got her bottle. Ketema taking on a gel at this point as well. But Desi just sacrificed a couple of seconds at that point to be sure that she got her bottle, and has now worked her way back and is running with that for longer. It's good to see Lemnem Hailu learning those lessons of the marathon as well, in doing the same thing, taking on her bottle, taking time to get the gels that are taped to it, the fluid and the fuels into your body at this stage. It is crucial, and you will need that in the closing stages.
Well, Dekebu is the surprise package here. There she is, the tallest of these athletes, nearest the camera. Mulia Dekebu Haile Mariam, the 27-year-old, has never broken 2:25, and indeed that personal best was when she was 2nd in Houston back in 2023, running a 9th marathon here, but having the best day of her life. And look at those splits, 3:12. That is the quickest kilometre of the race for the last 10 or 12 kilometres. You have to go back to 12 kilometres for a 3:11 split. So they have picked it up a little bit after that drink station.
They have, and I would hazard a guess that's what's done the damage to Adugna, who's not been able to stay with that lead group and is now starting to take its toll on Katema, who is working extremely hard to be able to stay with these lead four. And look at the focus on the face of Dikebo, eyes focused on the back of Said, the pacemaker, in front of her, and trying to push on, turn the screw a little bit and whittle this group down.
Well, I wonder what's going through the mind of Dikebo there, the athlete who's right in there, tucked in behind the pacemakers, who's running about 6 minutes quicker than she's ever run before. The tempo she's moving at anyway. And there is Ketema, who is Maritu Ketema. She's at 2:25 athlete. She is dropping back now in her 7th marathon, the former steeplechaser. 9:35 athlete as a steeplechaser. That's knocking on the door of world class. That was back in 2017 though. But she ran 2 marathons last year. She won Madrid, and then she was 2nd in Buenos Aires. Set a personal best in Madrid, that 2:25, and then 2:28 Buenos Aires. But she feeling it now, and she's dropping back away from this lead group. What a good job these pacemakers are doing. Now let's have a quick shout out for Said there. That is Suleiman Said Kisi, and on the far side Herpo, Aman Herpo Tufa. They were both tasked with going out at 68.30 for halfway for this field. Well, they were almost a minute down on that. It was 69.27, but there's only so much that pacemakers can do. They can't force a pace on the women. They can just try and coax it out of them.
Absolutely, and they need to really allow the women to dictate that pace to them. And as we have said, none of the women in this field had a personal best below 2:20 coming into this race. They are operating at this pace now. Hailu is, of course, on her debut as well, and is valiantly trying to hang on as a little bit of daylight opens up from the lead trio. Can she latch onto the back of that group? Because that will make her task much easier from here on in if she's able to do that.
Predicted race time 2:18.50. It's still a really healthy time that is projected for this leading women's group. Interestingly, though, that 26th kilometre was a 3:22 after a really quick 3:12 for 25k. So the pace is yo-yoing a little bit if the kilometre markers are to be trusted. I'm sure these 2 male pacemakers for this women's group are doing a great job. I can't believe they're letting it vary that much. Quite often, as you mentioned, Paula, you get this change of tempo when they get to a drink station. It slows them down a little bit, and then they accelerate again. There's a gentleman trying to get involved. That's always a little bit annoying to see.
He's not going to be able to keep up too long, as he's just found out.
He lasted about 20 metres.
He's just found out how impressive a pace these elite men are operating at. And if you try and join in on the other side of the cones, I would advise you will get a real sense of appreciation for the pace and the speed. They make it look very easy and very smooth, but they are working extremely hard. And as I mentioned, that is the debutant Melak settled in behind Sego at the front, Hakuzimana, who's lost his number on the far side of the road.
Sego it is, hugging the curb to left of picture. Berehanu Wendimut Sego, 2nd here last year, having another great run. He was 23 seconds behind the winner last year. Now here is an overly enthusiastic spectator, let's say. I'm not sure if he's chatting with them or he's just trying to see if he can last with them. Perhaps he's been close by watching it on TV and he thinks, I can do that. Well, he couldn't. I think it was proven within about 5 seconds. He couldn't get remotely close to jogging with them. Quite what the point of that was, I'm not sure. Thank goodness there was no security issue there. But Sego it is, leading that men's race. Now, where is Hakizinimana of Rwanda? The leading men at 30k then. There's their split, 1:28.26. So we're into the last 12k now, 1:28.26. And Segu, Melak, Haji, Hakizimana, they are the leading quartet at the moment. 2:57, that 30th kilometre. And it has slowed a little bit since the pacemakers dropped out. We got a 3:06, then a 2:57, 2:58, 3:01, 2:59, 15:01 for that 5 kilometre split. Look, between 25 and 30k, the slowest 5k split of the race, and that's frustrating, but it's so often the norm in these big races when you see that.
Yeah, I think we're just seeing the effect of racing coming in. Once the pacemakers step aside, there is that looking around who is keen to take on the pace, and now it does fall again to the debutant that I was talking about in Nibret Melak. He's 26. He has a personal best over the half marathon distance, an impressive one at 59.06. He was 6th last year in RAC and indeed finished 7th at the World Half Marathon Championships, and now feeling strong and obviously feeling that pace had dropped too much. He didn't like seeing those splits slow, so indicates that his training has gone well in preparation, and he comes into this debut expecting a good performance here and doesn't want to wait around anymore. He's going to keep turning the screw and see if he can break away at this stage in the race and get back closer to that 2:4 pace that they were on earlier.
Yes, Melak with the camera up close there. Predicted race time has just slipped outside 2:04, but that doesn't matter because here in Dubai, as just about every year, we've got a fabulous race building. Haji, who is looking so up for it, tucked in there in the group at the moment. Yassin Haji Hayato, he's a 2:07 performer. He could well be heading here for a personal best by 2 or 3 minutes, as Melak out in front just looks a little bit more aggressive, doesn't he? There's just something about his body language there, the way that he's striding. I think he's upped his tempo. Yeah, look, quite a short pitter-patter stride, but he looks very comfortable indeed. 1 hour 31 on the clock, and Nibret Melak, for my money, looks like he's cruising along here rather beautifully.
And the others have almost allowed him to do that. They haven't, of course, allowed. They've assessed in their body whether they have the means to go with it at this stage. They're trying to encourage each other, taking turns at the lead of that chase group to see if they can get back to Nibret Melak, who is working hard here. He hasn't yet broken that group, but he's certainly trying to. He's given it a good job of gradually winding up the pace, turning that screw, asking the questions of people in this group. Fantoon struggling to go with that at this point. And indeed, Hazikimana perhaps working hard, seeing as he is the one yo-yoing within that pack. Haji, the strongest of the group, as they try and whittle it down further and work towards Melak, who they can see just tantalizingly ahead up the road.
Nibret Melak, then, the 26-year-old, making his debut, having a wonderful debut. Haji has rallied a little bit. He was third at Rabat last year, and then in Frankfurt came 5th with a personal best in October. But Melak here, he looks absolute mustard, doesn't he, as we say. Won the Lisbon Half Marathon a couple of years back in 59 minutes. He's run 59 and bits in the Ras Al Khaimah Half Marathon. He was 6th last year. That, of course, is in just a couple of weeks' time. He's got great road times at the lower distances. He's run for 10K, 27:26. He ran a fast half marathon in Larne in Northern Ireland a couple of years back, 59 minutes there. So he's got really good credentials at 10K and half marathon, and this is such an exciting debut for him, and he's looking fantastic. Little glance over his shoulder there. He looks very fresh. Now, Paula, where are we at? We're at 32 kilometers almost, about 10K to go. You know full well that an awful lot can happen in 10K. That's 6 old English miles, but this race has been ripped apart. That pack was looking a little too comfortable for the last 5K, and Melak has done some real damage here.
Well, there was almost a waiting, wasn't there? And understandable if you're making your debut over the marathon distance. You want to make sure that you have it within you. And I think when you approach that final 10 kilometers, you get a real sense of what you have left in your body, and certainly Melak was confident in pushing on at that point. He got a sense from the other athletes, the fact that it was slowing, the fact that no one was really keen to get to the front, that perhaps if he put his foot down, he would answer that question of who was feeling good at this point, and that question has been answered, and for the moment it is he himself who is feeling the best and is pushing on. But as we said, that is not yet a insurmountable distance back to Haji, who is valiantly chasing behind.
Well, 32K His split for that last kilometre at 2:52. It's really quick. It's the equal quickest of the race, I think, just checking back through the times of the race so far. So that is what's done the damage, and a vicious acceleration. Now, it may not seem to many of you back at home watching on TV whether that a few seconds difference in a kilometre is very much at all. But believe me, when you're working hard in the latter stages of a marathon and you're redlining, somebody suddenly accelerates by 5 or 6 seconds within a couple of minutes, then it really does make a difference. And here's the rest of them. Fantahun there, who was a late addition to the field, the Ethiopian, struggling to go with this. But Melak here has ripped this pack apart and looks so relaxed for me. He looks like he's just stepped onto the road.
He does, and you get a good indication of what's left energy-wise in the athlete's system when they negotiate difficult points like that final hairpin turn. Now they will be relieved to have negotiated that and know that it is now pretty much straight running. A few turns as they come into this finish area, but otherwise it's straight running, and you could definitely see the fatigue telling. As we watch here, Tafa go round, you can see the fatigue showing as they negotiate that turn. Melak went round it strongly and pushed on out of that, as indeed did the duo chasing behind him in Segu and Hadji, and they are now working together to try and stop that gap from growing any further. I don't think they're making any inroads into closing it.
Well, he's approaching 33 kilometres. That last kilometre is saying, I thought it was a 2:52. I think the caption just came up at the bottom of the screen saying it was a 2:51, which is the quickest kilometre of the race. And the gap is growing all the time back to that pack behind him. Segu looking very strong in second place. Haji in his slipstream trying to stay with him. Berahanu Wendemu Segu there is in second place. He's a 2:05 performer. He was second here last year. He and Haji battling out for the minor places here. I don't want to over-predict it because we've still got about a half an hour of running to come. These two maybe can work together to try and minimise the damage being done, Paula, by Melak out in front. But it must be quite a sort of slap around the face when somebody kicks away like that with about 10k to go and there's nothing you can do. But furthermore, you can also see how good they look.
Yes, that's the other thing. And you can see, I mean, it's stating the obvious, but you see them moving away from you up the road, and you know that you are putting just about everything at this point that you've got left into your body to try and put as much time as you can and try and go with the move that they're making. And you're right, it almost looks as though when they're moving away ahead of you that they are running so much easier than you are. That is deceptive, of course. He is working extremely hard at the front, Melak, but he is having the adverse reaction in terms of he is seeing reward for his hard work, and he is hearing that gap grow if he's not seeing it, because we don't want him to turn around and look behind, but we want him to hear the footfalls and know he's moving ahead. Hakizimana is working extremely hard and not able to go with that, and that gap is growing.
Well, we saw Hakizimana there, the Rwandan. He's struggling on his own, always hard too. It's kind of ironic that when you're in the most difficult part of the race and you're having a bad patch maybe, or just the fatigue is accumulating, you end up on your own so often. Just when you need bodies around you and a little bit of help, when you're really fatigued, that's when there is no help. And yet here we have Melak, no help for him. But he's racing against the clock now, and the gap behind him is becoming a yawning gap. Look there, left of picture. That's a massive gap. He's got, what, maybe 80 meters lead on the rest of the pack, probably about 15 seconds, and he looks really comfortable too. There is something about the way he's moving. He just looks good. Haji looks pretty good too. Segu there, a little bit of a grimace. The teeth are showing, and he's working to stay in the slipstream of Haji. This is second and third, and it does look like here in Dubai, the race that discovers new talent year after year is doing so again today with the debut of Nibret Malek unfolding wonderfully.
Yeah, we're trying to assess how comfortable they are. From their facial expressions, can be tough, can be deceptive, but from their gait and their cadence, it gives a lot more away. And certainly Melak, for my money, looking really strong at this point, as indeed is Dikebo, working hard here to, is she breaking away from the experience of Desi and Worku, or have they just taken the time to take on their fluid and fuel at this point, and will they be able to work themselves back up into this group which is formed here of pacemakers, and I think one of the male athletes who's dropped back and the women have reeled in, and now Decabo benefiting from that and settling into the middle of this group.
Well, that 30k time, 1:38.30, has them on schedule for 2:18.30. Now, if they can wind it up, they might get down towards breaking the 2:18 barrier here today in this women's race, but they are racing each other. The men's race, well, it was a brilliant race until about 10 minutes ago when he started kicking away Melak. He looks like he might have the race in the bag because he's looking so strong. But in this women's race, we have a real contest on our hands, and it's Desi here, one of the pre-race favourites, who is struggling to go with this surge of those out in front. Worku too, the fastest in the field, coming to this in the green there, Paula. She's struggling a bit.
Well, they're both working hard to try and match the pace of Mulia Decabo, who is running so well here. Cannot emphasize, she has a personal best of 2:25.35, and as you said, Tim, she's operating down close to low 2:18 pace, and that is why the two women behind her are struggling to stay with her. They are sticking to the task. They are gradually trying to work themselves back onto the group that has formed around Mulia Decabo, but certainly at the moment she is the athlete who is keen to force the pace and has indeed been for much of this race. Concentration on the face of Fantu Worku, eyes focused on the road and the heels ahead of her.
Well, the race has got quicker and quicker in this women's race. That last 5k through to 30k, 16:18. The one before that was 16:20. The one before that, 16:23. And when you think that they set off pretty cautiously, the opening 5k was 16:36. The next one, 16:33. They really have upped their game in these last 10 kilometers through to 30k quite dramatically in this women's race. And I emphasize the word race because this is a fabulous contest unfolding here now. They've just gone past the 31k marker. Decabo looking strong, looking okay. She is the athlete who is, I think, heading here for a massive personal best. Could be a 5 or 6 minute personal best, maybe more here as she tucks in behind these two pacemakers who lope along and are doing a wonderful job.
Yeah, the only thing that worries me about Decabo is that she has taken on far less fluid and fuel than the two women chasing behind her, and I'm wondering if that experience is perhaps going to tell in these closing stages. But at the moment she is very keen to keep that pace pushing on, and the inexperience, if you like, of Melak is certainly the one that's bearing the fruit for him here today. He's pushing on with his knowledge of his training and how good he is feeling, and whittled that group down behind there, no longer can work together. That is Haji, who has got a bit of daylight on Segu in the background.
Well, Haji has rallied, there's no doubt about it. Melak's victory or win is not assured just yet. What have we got on the clock? 1:42. They've got about 23 minutes of running to come. Haji here is sticking to the task admirably. This is brilliant running from the 30-year-old Ethiopian. He's the one who is in such a strong training group. He's got that confidence from training with the Olympic champion from Paris, Tamirat Tola. I've got in my notes here huge potential at marathon and half. His half marathon personal best is only 61:03. And don't forget, they went through halfway here today in 62:06. So Haji, is he going to grab a drink here as he passes those drinks tables? Or is he just going to try and stick to his rhythm? Well, he hasn't picked up a personal drink. Now, that's interesting. Segu, rather. And there's the splits at 35k. Melak 1:42.59. 19 seconds now, that gap. That is becoming an unassailable gap. That's 100 meters.
Yeah, that is. It's impressive. It's impressive that it's growing. It's impressive that he is maintaining the pace. These splits that have come up, that 2:52 followed by a 2:53 to 35 kilometers. So he is consolidating the fastest split of the race that he threw down at 2:51 earlier, maintaining and pushing on even, and that pace and projected finishing time now dropping down close. Can he dip under that 2:04 barrier? I think his primary target coming here would have been to try and come away with a victory here as well as a fast time. Looks like he's wrapping up that victory. You can never say it's completely wrapped up in a marathon. Anything can happen in the closing stages, but for me, he looks strong, and you contrast that to the slight head rolling of Hadji down the road, that 20 seconds or so down the road behind him, who is working hard to consolidate the second place.
Well, doesn't he look fabulous? Small, compact, not a lot of arm movement, lovely, powerful stride and rhythm here. I said earlier he's got a short stride, but actually he's just got a nice, relaxed stride, hasn't he? It's not long, it's not short, he's not a pitter-patter type runner. You get some athletes who take small, fast strides, but he's just moving really well, Malak, to the left of the screen. And Dikebo looking really strong. You mentioned, Paul, you're worried that she might not have taken on enough liquids, but she's sticking right in there behind that pacemaker. Now, it's an interesting one, isn't it, when you get pacemakers in women's races in the latter stages that help some athletes, and while others behind are struggling. And I have a bit of an issue with that. I always think that maybe in a women's race, the pacemakers should drop out at 30K and let them race the latter stages. Otherwise, you get that unfairness where some athletes have got a pacemaker and others haven't.
I would agree with that. I'm not sure whether it's a concerted decision. It does look like it, doesn't it? It looks like Herpo, one of the pacemakers, has decided to drop back with Fantuwerk, who perhaps is a training partner of hers and has come into the race to pace her, and she now finds herself bested, if you like, by the two athletes in the purple vests ahead of her, Desi and Dikebo, and Said, the pacemaker, who has been at the front working hard for most of this race, is continuing to do so. A little look at the watch for Mulia Dikebo, who is working hard. They're all, of course, working very hard at this stage. They're getting now into that final 10 kilometers where it is really pouring everything that you've got left into, and now, as you mentioned earlier, starting to think about how you win this race.
Well, Fantuwerk, the pre-race favourite at Berlin 5th place a long time ago now. She's got her own pacemaker here, though, Herpa, who is helping her out. He was one of the pacemakers who brought them through, and she has just dropped back by, what, about 10 or 15 meters behind this leading pair, Dikebo and Desi. Desi, my notes say here, she could be a real danger if she's ready to step up, because Seville last year was her debut and she won. Then she won in Beijing. She's got 2 marathons under her belt so far, and she's won them both. 2:22.17 in Seville, and I presume another year since she had that was nearly a year ago. She's got a good year's training. So Desi there with the red armbands is confident. She knows how to win. Dikebo here, on paper, isn't the same class of athlete, but isn't it lovely when marathons throw up the unexpected? You get somebody who's won her last 2 marathons, is a brilliant young runner, racing against somebody who's a little bit older, been around a bit longer. She's 27, Dikebo, the taller of these 2 women, and yet we've got a great matchup.
And we have indeed, and they're working hard. That 32nd kilometre you can see on the screen, 3:12 now. 3:13 is around about 2:17 and a half pace. That's why you see the predicted pace dropping down for the women. That's also why we see Fantuwerk working as hard as she is doing to try and go with this, because the 2 women ahead of her are being able to lift this pace coming into this final 10 kilometres and do some damage to the field without, it looks like, doing too much damage to themselves, still keeping enough in to be able to race, because neither of these women has this race won yet. This is still a fascinating battle to unfold over the next 8 kilometres or so.
Well, I haven't seen them talking with each other. I haven't seen them talking to the pacemakers. The number 42 there in the background, who, forgive us, we haven't got his name to go with that number, but he is just a really strong local runner, I think, or at least a late entrant to this race. We've got 40 and 41, 46 and 47, but I haven't got a name for number 42, so apologies for that. But Said, the pacemaker there, doing a great job, as he has done now for almost 2 hours with this pair behind him. They are in single file, so they're working hard to stay with him here, and he's got to judge his effort here, because he's stretching them along here and just trying to hold a steady tempo, I suppose. But they're working hard here.
They are, and I'm kind of with you in at this point. it would be nice to have the pacemakers step aside and see, can the women just race amongst each other, because it's certainly helping at the moment, I think, for Dikebo and for Desi, but certainly helping Dikebo a little bit more, just to focus on the heels of the runner in front of her and stick to that pace, rather than if she was leading this women's group, she would have to be pushing on alone, and that's a different thing to do. It's a braver thing to do, and that's what Nibret Melak is doing in the men's race.
Melak checks his watch. 1 hour 49 the clock. He's got about 15 minutes of running to come. The gap behind him has got bigger and bigger over the last 20 minutes or so. It has been a brilliant race so far for Nibret Melak, the 26-year-old, making his debut here, an established half marathon racer. He was in the Ethiopian team at Tokyo in the Olympics back in 2021, but he went out in his 5,000 meter heat. He won the African Championships 10,000 meters back in 2024, where he took a silver in the 5,000. Then he won the All Africa Games a couple of years ago over 10,000 meters. So he's an established star on the track and at half marathon, and it's all coming to fruition now here. It sounds a little bit like your career, Paula, you know, where you worked so hard for many, many years at the lower distances. Then you hit the marathon with the right timing, and you find your home.
Yeah, I mean, certainly there are some athletes, because you never know until you run the first marathon. You can be told that physiologically you have everything it takes to be a great marathon runner, but until you actually run one, you never know if it will be your home, as you say, and if you will be completely comfortable there. Haji is also moving into a little bit of uncharted territory here. He's valiantly trying to stick to the task and consolidate that second place. Not really any chance of making any inroads on the lead of Melak here. In fact, you can see back down the road behind that gap that was around about 20 seconds has certainly, for my money, grown more, and he is underlining the pace at the front, Nibret Melak, with that 2:57, 2:55. So when he slows slightly, he picks it up again. Very, very focused on the road in front of him, just not waste any wasted energy. I like his running form. It's an efficient running form.
Well, and you know what's really striking is how fluid he looks compared with Haji. Haji is working well. He's working hard to keep remotely in touch with Melak here, but Melak looks really fluid. He looks quite magnificent with the sun beating onto his arms. The sun hasn't been up that long. Temperature is just about perfect. There's no wind here in Dubai. If you've joined us in the last half hour or so, you're watching this 25th edition of the Dubai Marathon unfold in 2026. Brilliant racing on the roads of this bustling capital of the UAE. And Segu here, he's back in third place, we think. Berehanu Wendimu Segu, to give him his full name, a 2:05 performer. He was second here last year. He's in third place at the moment. Back behind him there in fourth place to the left of picture is John Hakizimana of Rwanda, who is a 2:08 athlete. He might be heading for a personal best here as well. 38 kilometers on the clock, and these guys are in survival mode.
They are, as indeed will most of the marathon runners out here today be once they get to the 38-kilometer marker. It's kind of the point, though, where you know you're going to make the finish. Although the fatigue is really starting to kick in, it is about going to your survival place, whatever the technique is, whether you're running in the mass races or whether you're running in these elite races. They will have developed techniques to stay in the moment, to stay focused, and to come through these difficult stages by trusting in the training that you've put in, by trusting in the mental techniques that you've got in place, just to be able to maintain that rhythm. And the bounce is still there. If you contrast Melak with Hakizimana, you can see there's a little bit more bounce in his stride. He just seems to have a little bit more energy in the lower legs while maintaining that upper body. Well, I can't really talk, but he is maintaining it very, very still, and that's certainly helping him in these closing stages.
He is moving by far the best. He looks fresh. That's what's really striking. When we know he's got great distance great form at the lower distances at 5K and 10K on the 5,000 and 10,000 on the track and a half marathon. But it's the how impressive it is with nearly 2 hours on the clock, how fresh she looks, Melak, there to left of picture. Here to the right of picture, well, we have got a real race unfolding on our hands. There's a new character appeared, 1574. I don't know where he's come from, but maybe he's come through from behind or they've caught him. But he is a mass runner effectively. But this is the leading pair in the women's race, Decebo and Desi, having a battle royal. 1 hour 54 on the clock. They've got, what about 20 minutes of running to come, 23 or 24 minutes of running to come. There are their splits. Pretty steady, 3:10. It's picked up a little bit through to 34K. And I suppose for them, Paula, it's helpful to have these male runners around them. And it would be lovely just to see them battle out the last 2 or 3 kilometres at least on their own.
Absolutely. I mean, I think number 42 will have come off the elite start and the women actually caught him during this race, whereas the other athlete in there is perhaps a lap behind on this stage. So he started in the mass race, which went off a little bit later, and now unfortunately won't be for him approaching the 35-kilometre marker or having gone through it, as these women have done. And we see Worku, will she find her bottle at this station? Certainly it looks crucial for her at this point, because she needs to try and maintain that, consolidate that third position that she finds herself in. It does look like the winner is going to come from one of these two women at the front, Decebo and Desi, locked in battle as they have been for much of this race. It's interesting, these were the two at the front in the early stages, even through the 10-kilometre point, pushing on the pace, and now they are the two women fighting for the victory here. That pace continues to drop down very, very slightly and gradually, 16:15 for that final kilometre, which is extremely impressive running, and I think they will certainly challenge that 2:18 barrier if they continue like this.
Well, you could argue that it's good when you want to see a fast time in this race, because the pacemakers are dragging a quick time out of those ladies, but maybe it is compromising the racing a little bit that's going on between them. There's that beautiful view looking northwards on this fantastically fast marathon course here in Dubai. The Jumeirah Beach Road stretches away in the distance. To the left of picture, just out of shot, was the Burj Al Arab, and here that leading pair in the women's race. Now, do I sense a little bit more aggression here from Decebo? She's working hard with her arms, isn't she? The taller of this pair. Desi, with the red armbands, Paula, looks quite a lot smoother.
She does look smoother. She looks around a little bit more. She gauges what's happening around her. She takes her fluid bottles well and holds on to them throughout this race. So I think her experience is showing, but Decebo is certainly having the run of her life to this point, absolutely decimating her personal best, whatever happens from here on in, to go from a 2:25 personal best to smash through the 2:20 barrier and go potentially threatening the 2:18 mark is an extremely impressive run, as we're seeing from Melak.
Current leader then, 1:57.37. That's the 40K clock. I think he's just gone through the 40K timing, Matt. He's just gone through. We shall see.
Yeah.
Yes, 1:57.35 for Melak at 40K. Unofficially a 2:58, still moving well, taking liquid on board. He's obviously learned from the best, who is doing everything right. He went early. Some people, Paula, might have thought he went too early when he kicked in. If you're feeling really good, do you go early to go for a fast time? Some people would say, no, it's wise to wait and hold back, don't give it away, because you risk, the earlier you kick away, the more risk you're taking that something might go wrong in the last few kilometres. But he went really early, and it's unfolded perfectly for him so far.
It is, is, and I would argue that that shows and demonstrates the knowledge that he has from his training, the shape that he's in. He knew he had enough. Contrast his movement now with Haji, who is certainly starting to struggle. He tried to go with it. He's coming into the last kilometre now. He's working extremely hard. I think that last kilometre is for Melak, not for Haji. He's looking back down the road behind. He has a bit of a stitch. He's certainly struggling. Look how smooth now Nibret Melak is pushing on. He had every confidence, and interestingly, he still took that 40-kilometre bottle, if only just to trick his mind. Sometimes just getting a little bit of a sugar hit in your mouth is enough to tell the brain that you have enough energy to get through the final 2 kilometres. And that shot with the sun starting to rise higher in the sky behind him just underlines how smooth and confident he is looking, in no danger of being caught. It is now all about how fast he can run, whereas Haji is struggling.
Yeah, Haji, there's a real sign. His form is going. It has looked a little ropey for a little while now. I mean, he's done well to try and ease away and secure second place for himself, but that glance over his shoulder was really telling. If you see somebody looking over their shoulder, it tells you that they're more concerned about what's going on behind them than they are about catching somebody up the road ahead of them. However, that's what he saw, a really good sight, a lovely big gap behind him there, and Haji Yassin Haji Hayato will be delighted with that, the 30-year-old. He's going really well. By the way, when he ran in Frankfurt back in October and set his personal best of 2:07, I'm hearing it was quite a windy day, so maybe that 2:07 didn't do him justice, and he's heading for a big personal best here today. We think the winning time at 40k, the split for, by the way, for Melak, was equivalent to almost exactly 2:04. If he can just hold it together through the last couple of kilometres here, Melak, and he's still looking strong, Paula, he could go below 2:04.
I think he definitely appears, there we go, 41 kilometres, so just slightly over a kilometre left to run in this race, and for sure he's going to run that sub 3:30 pace, so he is challenging that mark and operating strongly. I don't think he's lost much in terms of how strong he appears to be holding himself together. His cadence, his form, he's maintaining it really, really well. And that is the hardest thing to do over these closing stages of the marathon. You're in the final kilometre. Everything in your body is screaming to kind of go in different directions. And you need to be able to maintain your form, maintain your focus, and keep working hard towards that finish line, which seems to be moving further and further away.
Well, this has been a textbook execution of how to run your debut marathon. A great career at 10,000 metres and half marathon. At 26, moves up to the marathon and destroys one of the strongest fields in the world that we'll see this year here in Dubai 2025. Absolutely brilliant from Melak. I don't think his win is in doubt.
No, as we go back to the battle in the women's race, and here there is some doubt as to who will come out the victor in this race. They are locked in battle, very little to choose between them. Their pace has slowed slightly, we see, through that 36th kilometre. Perhaps a little bit of a gathering for the final surge, because in contrast to the men's race, these two women have a race to win yet, and they have to play their cards right. Fantuwerku holding on to that third position and running strongly.
Yeah, Fantuwerku dropped by that leading pair, but she has got a pacemaker there of her own through the figure of Aman Herpotufa. He was one of the pacemakers for that lead group of the women, and in a way this puts my mind at rest a bit, because if she was having to work on her own here and the leading pair are pushing away up the road, when you see that so often in races where women who have been dropped from the main pack or from the lead group in the latter stages don't get any help, at least she has got some help here to help her along. But then again, you know, there'll be 2 or 3 women behind her stretched back down the road who haven't got pacemakers.
Exactly.
So you can make a really strong case for saying from 35k, say, even if as late as that, pacemakers in the women's races should drop out.
And Werku will be aware of the fact that although she isn't still challenging for the win, she is still within a shot of beating her personal best time, and that will be motivating her at the moment. That stands at 2:21.57 in those warm conditions in Berlin.
Melak to write a picture almost on the home straight now. He can taste victory. He can smell the finish line, so to speak. We are on the, it is on the parade ground of the Dubai Police Academy. He's within the grounds now, 2:03 on the clock. He's coming towards the finish. That's the penultimate turn he makes. He's got a right-hand turn. Sorry, it's the third to last turn. He's got a right-hand turn to make now, and then a left-hand turn into the finishing straight, which is 80 meters long. He looks magnificent. He's staying calm and he's not sprinting. And look at this. I was on this a couple of days ago. 2:03 on the clock. Is he going to break 2:04? He's got a left-hand turn to make here now. He can see the finish line. Here he comes. The crowd roar him home. This has been a magnificent debut from this young man. He strides towards the line, sprints to break the tape, and breaks the 2:04 barrier as well. That is quite fantastic. The fastest time in the world this year. It's only the 1st of February, but that is going to take some beating, believe me. I reckon that was about 2:03.57, something like that. Now he can lie down, now he can look tired, but every step over the last 2 hours plus, he has looked like royalty. Quite magnificent here in Dubai, and the Ethiopian crowds, hundreds of them spectating here at the finish, are celebrating a magnificent victory there from a new star in the world of marathon racing.
He has found his distance, hasn't he? And well done, Nibret Melak. In the end, he did go through that 2:04 barrier and actually rattled a little bit the championship record of Getnat Molla back from 2019. That was 2:03.34. So perhaps had he known he was as close to that, could he have found a little bit more in those closing stages? He had the race wrapped up. He had a personal best for sure, seeing as he was making a debut. And now look at this. The battle, very tiring. Haji, now what has happened to Segu, who was in third position? Has he passed Haji?
No, I think this is Haji coming in second place. Haji was in second place, wasn't he?
Yes, he was, but he was visibly tiring.
Well, he's got a gap. Maybe Segu, who's wearing number 2, has got his own problems. There's no sight of him yet, as Yasin Haji Hayato is in the home finishing straight. And here, in fact, is Akizin Mana. I think he's in third place, so has something befallen Berahanu Wendimu Segu, as here comes the man in second place, Yasin Haji Hayato, a 2:07 performer before today, but this I think is going to be a magnificent run for him, and it's going to be a personal best as he crosses the line in second place by almost exactly 2 minutes. A fantastic run from Haji, and that is a run, a really strong run too, from Hakizin Mana of Rwanda. He was a 2:08 performer before today, and he's just come home in about 2:06.02 unofficially, something like that, very, very close to the 2:06 barrier. He has just taken the Rwandan something like 2 hours 15 seconds off his lifetime best. A brilliant run from him has come through for third place. And here is the battle for the minor places as some of the other men come through the Police Academy grounds. Ayana battling away here, and Ayana Gizelo Abeje Hayana, he's a 2:07 performer. He too against Fantahun. Fantahun, the taller of the pair, gets to the line first. I think they're 5th and 6th, but they both run big personal bests. Goodness me, what a day. They have taken advantage of the great pace making and the wonderful conditions here. And the 2:07 just clicks by on the clock, and I think we've got 7 or 8 home.
We have, and we've seen some huge personal bests. Molalin Fantahun there has just knocked about 7 minutes off his personal best. That stood at just under 2:12.
That's insane.
Coming into this race, so he has smashed that and committed to the race as well. Contrast that to Ayana, who came through a little bit later. He's taken a minute or so off his personal best. I think we will have perhaps a record for the number of personal bests set here today. We did talk about the fact that conditions were conducive to those good times today, and it's good to see that Ethiopian support squad out in strength as always here in Dubai. Hear them chanting long before the runners approach the finish line and celebrating another Ethiopian victory and a stunning debut from Nibret Melak.
But that initial fatigue after crossing the line has gone. Here is the form of Nibret Melak. Ethiopia have done it again. Dubai has done it again. It has unearthed a massive talent in this young man. He's only 26 years old. His debut here today was a stunning victory for him. Former track star, former half marathon star, now the fastest man in the world this year in the marathon. And I wonder where he'll be in a few months' time when more races have clicked through, when the Bostons and Paris and Londons and Rotterdams have come by in April. He might still be at the top of the rankings. And I'll tell you what, he's going to be in demand because there's more in the tank, Paula. I mean, he looked fantastic. He looked like he's got another couple of minutes in the tank.
He did. Actually looked as though he was working extremely hard, but you have to say hats off to him for holding it together as he did, because he was visibly struggling over that last couple of kilometers, extremely tired crossing the line. And a little bit of that is the fact that when you win the race, you get a little bit of extra bonus energy, don't you? So no matter how tired you are, it always feels a little bit better to be that first across the line. But Melak did a much better job at holding his form together and really raising the pace gradually that final 10 kilometers and coming out on top.
$80,000 for the winners here today, $40,000 US for second and $20,000 for third. The total prize purse is over $330,000 for the men's and women's races. Same prize money, of course, for the men and women. Big hugs and support here, all being lifted aloft for Libret Melak. This, by far, the biggest win of his career. And this is a man who's won the All-Africa Games 10,000. He's won the African Championships at 10,000 meters. He's been a great half-marathon racer. And now he will be not only celebrated here in Dubai as a great marathon race, but when he gets home, my boy, oh boy, is he going to get a welcome when he gets back to Addis. They have done it again. The Ethiopians have got an ability to churn out great champions on an almost industrial scale. I was in Addis a couple of years back and I saw them at the training tracker in the early hours of the morning. Dozens and dozens of athletes arriving at the track at 6:30, 7:30 in the morning, and big packs churning out massive sessions on the training track with their day's work virtually done before 9 a.m.
They put in the work, and as all of the runners will have done here today, whether they're in the mass race or in these elite races, you have to put in the work to get the rewards in marathon racing and to experience the joy of crossing that finish line, no matter how exhausted you are by the time that you get there.
Well, Hakizimana setting a national record for Rwanda, of course, with that third place. You can see more athletes coming home and celebrating, happy with their performances. 2:11 just going up on the clock there as that athlete come home. Trying to see who it is. Is that Matez?
Yes.
Coming through. I mean, we didn't get how many athletes got under 2:10, but it was a lot. And now we can hear from the winner.
This debut marathons ever, and certainly the fastest time this year. How did you feel out there?
የዚህ ዓመት ፈጣኑ ማራቶን የሮጥከው ደግሞ የመጀመሪያ ማራቶን ተሩጦ የተመዘገበ በጣም ፈጣኑ ሰዓት ነው። ምን ተሰማ?
እጅግ በጣም ደስተኛ ነኝ። በቂ ዝግጅት አድርጌ ነበር። ያሰብኩትን በማግኘቴ እጅግ በጣም ደስ ብሎኛል።
I am so happy right now. I get what I want. I was prepared for this. I am really happy for this win.
At about 32 kilometers, you put in a very fast kilometer, I think 2:51, something like that, and you broke away, but you carried on with that pace. You must have felt extremely strong.
ከ32ኛው ኪሎ ሜትር በኋላ ነው ፈጥነህ የወጣው። በጣም ፈጣን ሩጫ ነበር ያደረከው። በጣም ጥንካሬ ተሰምቷል ማለት ነው። እንዴት ነበር ውድድሩ?
በዛ ከ32 ኪሎ ሜትር በኋላ በጣም ነው የወጣው። ያው የሰራሁትን ትሬኒንግ እንድተገብር ኮች ስለነገረኝ እሱን ያደረጉት፣ እሱን በማድረጌ ነው የተሻለ ሰዓት አግኝቻለሁ።
So my coach told me to break out on the 32nd kilometer. That was what I was preparing for. Saying I broke out and I get the win as my coach told me, and I get the win. I'm happy for it.
And Nibrit, what is next for you now? Because you've run a good 10,000 meters, you've run a good half marathon, now you've run a good marathon. What do you do next?
ቀጣይ ምን ታስባለህ? ጥሩ 10,000 ሜትር ሮጠሃል። በጣም ፈጣን የሚባል የማራቶን ድል አስመዝግበሃል። ቀጣይስ ምንድነው የምታስበው?
ያው ቀጣይ ከዚህ የተሻለ ሰርቼ ያው ክብረ ወሰን ለማሻሻል ነው መሰጋጀው ይሄን እንደማረግም አሰልጣኝ ጋር ጥሩ ትሬኒንግ እየሰራው ነው ሰብራለሁ ይሄን ተስፋ አደርጋለሁ
So in the coming years I am preparing myself to break world records. Me and my coach are doing the same thing to register a good time. So my plan is to break world records.
We look forward to that very much. Congratulations.
ይህንን ደግሞ ወደፊት እንደምታደርገው ተስፋ እናደርጋለን። መልካም እድል።
እኔም አመሰግናለሁ።
He's thanking you so much.
Thank you.
Well, I think he said there he hopes to break the world record in coming years. I love that ambition. And I tell you what, it's not necessarily overly optimistic, Polo, because he looked magnificent this morning, running in the 2:03s.
Yeah.
And another 2 or 3 races under his belt, and there's more to come. But there's racing still going on.
There absolutely is. And we had mentioned a couple of times that it was Ancinalo Desi who was keeping her powder dry, if you like, was sitting at the back of that pack, not making any moves. But when she has made a move, it has been decisive in this race, and she has eked out a lead, not yet a winning lead, but certainly a lead that appears to be growing over Mulia de Kebo behind her, who is operating in significant personal best territory, her personal best in those 225 range, and she is now operating close to 218 if they have maintained the improvements in pace that they were putting on, or indeed if they're steady, they're still around that 218 and a half. Indeed, there is the 41 kilometre marker passed, so inside the last 1.2 kilometres of this race for Ancinalo Desi.
Yeah, well, we said about 15-20 minutes ago she was looking really good, tucked in behind her main rival, De Kebo, and so it would seem to be the case. She has kicked in here with about 10 minutes to go and has eased away from De Kebo. And here is the battle for the minor places, and there's challenges going on for athletes. Is that in fact De Kebo she's catching there? Wow.
No, I think this is a replay of what happened. So this is obviously the 40k drinks marker, drinks position table, and De Kebo has tried to take on fluids, and it's her body rebelling because she is operating in that territory where every part of your body is rebelling, and that's why you saw the fluids coming back up. She hasn't given up though, she is rallying. Desi took advantage of that weakness there as she was noticeably struggling to push on and eke out this gap. Has that really grown? It appears to be maintaining, and there can be about 500-600 meters of this race left perhaps at this point.
Well, she hasn't got the race won yet. There is chasing going on, but De Kebo here with 2:15 on the clock surely is going to break 2:20. This is going to be a personal best for Desi here, rather, by about 3 minutes, maybe more. It's only her third marathon. She's been a half marathon specialist for the last 3 years. She's run so consistently a half marathon. 3 times she's run in the 67s, 3 times in the 68s, 4 times in the 69s. Fabulously consistent as a half marathon racer. Last year she won Seville, and then she won in Beijing, and this is going to be another win. And Paula, a 100% record of victories after 3 marathons under your belt. That is very rare indeed, and you know, joining the sub 220 club by a big chunk, barring disaster in these next couple of minutes. Again, we're seeing, while it's not her debut, we're seeing Dubai here today discovering another massive talent.
And I think she's underlined her potential moving forward by the manner of her victory as well. She kept it moving in the early stages, was right up the front of that pack, and then settled back, didn't make any big moves until the decisive one when she was able to take advantage, when she saw weakness in her rival, push on and forge ahead, and is now forging further ahead as she senses that finish line growing ever closer, a little bit more of a spring in her step, and De Kebo sticking well to that task because she's come through that bad patch and handled it really, really well.
Well, last year in the women's race, the Ethiopians filled the places from 1st through to 16th. And yet again today they're going to have the top places on the rostrum, of course. But Ancinalo Desi with De Kebo in the background there. The foreshortening effect is somewhat, it fools you a little bit. The gap is fairly big between these two. I don't think Desi's victory is under threat here, but it is going to be a massive breakthrough for her. She's punched through the 220 barrier, still looking bouncy, still looking strong, as she negotiates these last 2 or 3 turns in the in the police academy here, and she's got about 100, maybe 200 meters to go. Desi here, still got targets. Will she finish as strongly as did Melak to take that men's title? There is the second place in Decabo, who is herself heading for a massive personal, but she will knock about 7 minutes off her best. Desi here, and Chinlu Desi, the 23-year-old, she's still a youngster. She's going to knock about 4 minutes off her lifetime best as she roars towards the finish line here. It's going to be a magnificent win for this young woman. Yet again, her third marathon, her third victory here at the 2026 Dubai Marathon. 2:18:32 unofficially, a massive time, the fastest in the world this year by some 3 minutes or so, overtaking the winning time in Doha of Gezahen, 2:21:14. It's an Ethiopian double once more in Dubai, but Paula, wow, what a day at the races for these relatively new names in the world of marathon racing. Melak, a debutante, wins the men's, and Chinelu Desi, a third consecutive victory for her at the marathon distance. And Worku, I think, coming home there, is that for third place? Decabo, we didn't see coming across the line. The pre-race favourite, Fantu Worku, but she too runs a massive personal best, down around 2:19:10.
Yeah, so that's almost, well, 3 minutes almost that she's taken off her personal best. We did mention that was run in the heat of Tokyo, where she had struggled, but she was dropped fairly early on in the closing stages of this race and stuck to her task really, really well, obviously knowing that she was on track still for a strong race and a personal best, and extremely impressive racing from Anchinalu Desi. I think really a lot more to come from this woman when she has the courage to perhaps go out a little bit quicker, because she had a lot left in those closing stages. Race that race to win it rather than searching for a time, I think.
Well, 2:18:31, the unofficial winning time there. She's a former track star. She's a fabulous athlete. Is Desi, half marathon specialist years gone by. Served her apprenticeship at the lower distances, and as she said, she feels really ready for a good run here today, and indeed she does just that. Having won in Seville last year and Beijing, she racks up another victory. And times, I suppose, Paula, less important than winning. You know, if you look at the purity of the sport, you say, no, win your races, win your events, the times will come. But when you win in a super fast time as well, a massive personal best, it's the full set, isn't it?
It is, and that's why perhaps if you're to choose between the two victories today, Melak's is that tiny bit more impressive, because on his debut he had the bravery to push on from 32 kilometers, to know that he had more left in him, and to go in search of that fast time on his debut does indicate he has more to come in the future. But as I said, very wise racing from Anchinalu Desi, who did what she needed to do to come away with the victory, and was rewarded with a big personal best too.
Well, it does prove that when conditions are perfect, the athletes will deliver. Race director Peter Connaughton has got to be incredibly happy with his two winners today. The fast times to many, many men getting a long way under 2:10. Several women, I lost count, I don't know how many, but at least 3, I think, getting under 2:20 in the women's race. And that is still a very significant barrier in the world of women's marathon running, even though the world record now is supposed to be below 2:10. But of course, Negetic getting busted after that time in Boston back in 2024. Here is Desi's winning form. Kip Kemboy there having a tough day at the races, being beaten by the women's winner. Focused, absolutely focused all the way to the line. Never run any track, but we know she's got good speed, a really good 10K in Valencia a couple of years back. And keeping very, how should we say, controlled there, keeping the emotions.
Yeah, I think they came out in the closing strides as she crossed the line, but maintaining that focus and also looking very, very composed down that home straight, almost reminiscent of, I know it was Worku who's spoken about her idol, Doratu Tulu, but she would stay extremely, extremely relaxed and composed, even when she was really struggling inside, and Desi was able to do that, giving nothing away to her rivals.
Well, her time, 2:18.31, about 4 seconds slower than the winning time of Badatu Harpa last year. It's the 5th consecutive win by an Ethiopian. The last time a non-Ethiopian won the women's race was Ruth Chepngetich back in 2019 when she ran 2:17.08. But Desi here, they were going to try and have a word with her if she's got the energy. She's tiny, isn't she?
Congratulations.
5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And Chinalu, congratulations. You must have felt very good towards the end of the race because it was a very close race until the last few kilometers. What made you feel you could win?
እንኳን ደስ አለሽ አንቺናሉ በመጀመሪያ በጣም ጥሩ ስለራስ እየተሰማሽ ነበር ማለት ነው እስከ መጨረሻዎቹ ኪሎሜትሮች ድረስ በጣም በጋራ ሆናችሁ ነበር ስትሮጡ የነበረው አሸናፊ እንደምትሆኚ ምን አይነት ስሜት ተሰማሽ ወደ መጨረሻው አካባቢ
ወደ መጨረሻው እኔ አሸንፋለሁ ብዬ ተስፋ ነበረኝ እግዚአብሔር ይመስገን አሸንፋለሁ በማሸነፌ ደስ ብሎኛል
So during the last race of the race, the last part of the race, I was feeling confident. I was feeling I could win this race. I am so happy that I won this race. Thanks to God, I won this race. I'm happy for it.
And what is next for you? Are you looking forward to your next competition? That must have given you a lot of confidence.
ቀጣይስ ምን ታስቢያለሽ? ይሄ ውጤት መቼም በራስ መተማመንሽን ጨምሮታል። ምንድነው የምታስቢው ወደፊት?
ወደፊት ሜጀር ማራቶኖችን እንዳሸንፍ ከእግዚአብሔር ጋር እየሰራው አሸንፋለሁ ብዬ ተስፋ አደርጋለሁ
So in the future, I want to do major marathon runs. I want to win the major marathon runs. If God's willing, that's my plan.
And you must be thrilled with a personal best of 4 minutes, I think, in the end. Did you feel as if there is more still to come?
የግል ፈጣን ሰዓትሽን በጣም ነው ማሻሻል የቻልሽው ይሄንን ማድረግ በመቻልሽ ወደፊትስ ከዚህ የበለጠ ከዚህ የተሻለ ነገር ማድረግ እንደምትችይ ይሰማሻል አሁን
ይሰማኛል ፈጣን ሰዓቴ ይሄ ነው እርግጥ አሁን ሶስተኛ ማራቶን ይሄ ነው ሶስቱም አንደኛ ዊነር ነኝ በዚህ ደስተኛ ነኝ
Yeah, I'm feeling I can do a bit more. This is my 3rd run. All of my runs, I have won all of my 3 marathons. So I'm feeling confident and I can do more.
An Ethiopian women's marathon running is looking very strong at the moment. There were 3 of you quite close together. Are you excited about the future?
የኢትዮጵያ ሴት ማራቶን አትሌቶች በጣም ጥሩ የተሰማችሁ እንደሚሆን ተስፋ አደርጋለሁ ምክንያቱም በመጨረሻ 3 የወጣችሁት በጋራ ናችሁ ወደፊት ለኢትዮጵያ ሴት ማራቶን ጥሩ ነገር እየመጣ እንደሆነ ይሰማሻል
ይሰማኛል ማራቶን ላይ ኢትዮጵያ ሁሉም አሸናፊ ነው እና ደስተኛ ነኝ በዚህ
Yeah, I'm feeling confident that Ethiopian marathon runners are all winners. So I'm feeling confident. I'm feeling good about the future, about the prospect.
A big congratulations.
Thank you.
እንኳን ደስ አለሽ በጣም
Thank you.
Absolutely brilliant there. Yeah, lovely smile when she realizes the interview is over. I think it was a bigger smile than when she crossed the line. But she's got to get used to being interviewed because she keeps winning. This is Worku, the pre-race favorite. Now, did she finish in 3rd place, I think, Worku? She's working hard. But again, a massive personal best for her. Several women under 2:20 today. And some consolation there. If you're not going to win, then running faster than you've ever run before is quite some way of giving yourself consolation.
Definitely, and she stuck to her task, perhaps knowing, I think, that she was as close as she was to that personal best.
Well, the sun is up. There's still no wind. Look at those flags, top right of your picture. It's absolutely a glorious morning here in Dubai. It's still only not even 8:15 local time here. Now we can have a look. There is the result of that women's 25th edition of the Dubai Marathon. What a race it was. The Ethiopians, of course, dominating. And Chinelu Desi, 2:18.31, the best of all of them. Dekebo, fabulous too. Worku, 2:19.08. The first 3 going under 2:20. Plenty of personal bests there, I have to say. But Desi, a class apart today. Dekebo having stomach problems in the last few hundred meters. And Paula, it's a rather intimidating almost for the rest of the world, isn't it, when you see that strength in depth of the Ethiopians. Confirmation of the win for Nibret Melak, 2:04. Well, I'm surprised at that. I thought he got well under 2 hours 4 minutes today, but maybe that is the correct time. Yasin Haji, 2:05.52. Look at that, the first 6 men under 2:07 here today. A national record for John Hakizimana of Rwanda, 2:06.04, a fabulous third place for him. But Melak was a class apart, winning by almost 2 minutes. That is stunning.
It was all done over that final 10 kilometres with that brave attack just around about the 32-kilometre mark.
Nibret Melak, I wonder what this year holds for him. He'll be tempted, I'm sure, by offers to do the big races coming up in London and Boston and so on. Maybe he'll wait until the quick races of the autumn period, the Berlins and Amsterdams of this world, where, of course, quick times, quick courses are beckoning like today. But to win by 1 minute 52 seconds on your debut is quite astonishing. That was a rare victory. The quality of the victory. Well, I do hope you enjoyed these elite races half as much as we have. The Ethiopians, of course, and there are tens of thousands of them here in UAE. They come here for the work, for the employment, but they also enjoy themselves. And boy, oh boy, they're enjoying themselves here this morning on the grounds of the police academy, the parade ground of the Dubai Police Academy. And there has to be a shout out too for the Dubai Sports Council, who have supported this race so well over the years, celebrating their 20th anniversary. Just recently, their strategic plan to increase participation here in the UAE in sport for the locals as well as the expats, the foreign workers who come in, is an ambitious one. And you have to be ambitious in this world. Dubai itself is an ambitious place, isn't it, Paula? Every year we come back, there are more gleaming towers poking up into the sky. Our hotel, the Seal, is the tallest hotel in the world. It's been a magnificent venue for us these last few days and for these athletes. And I think we're going to see some celebration tonight.
I think we will. I'm sure we will. And just to underline, again, it's a city and a race that has grown so much over the previous years, and I want to wish the very best of luck to everybody still out there taking part, be it in the 10K that's about to get underway, the 4 kilometres, or in the mass marathon. Be inspired by the outstanding performance of this man, Nibret Melak, and congratulations to him on a stunning debut.
Well, you can only make one debut, so you'd better get it right, and boy oh boy did he get it right today. That unofficial winning time, well, the official winning time is 2 hours and 4 minutes. I could have sworn he went well under 2 hours 4 minutes here today, but clearly the timing system knows best. Melak there, I think, less tired so much as in shock when he crossed the line and was rolling around on the ground there. Here's the women's winner in her form. She had targets even in the last few dozen meters to catch, and she caught Kemboy there, one of the male elites. That's how fast she ran here today. 2:18.31 her winning time. Absolutely brilliant from her. A massive chunk knocked off her lifetime best here today. Something like almost 4 minutes from her personal best. A very, very special day indeed, and her third marathon, a third consecutive victory.
Outstanding racing, and more to come, I think, from many of the athletes that we've seen today, and a great, great start to 2026 for them.
Well, it has been a magnificent day of elite racing. The thousands in the full marathon, in the 10K and the 4K will be out on the roads of Dubai for some hours yet, but there's a lovely shot on which to end our coverage. The Burj Al Arab pushing out into the ocean, quite magnificent, and it pretty much symbolizes how special today has been here. Paula, a final thought?
Just thank you to the city of Dubai for welcoming us and for putting on such a great race. As always, hope you've been inspired to perhaps join us next year.
Absolutely, yes. Well, come and race here next year. Why not? It's always in January or at the beginning of February. It's a race that delivers everything, including gorgeous weather. We're going to head back to the hotel now, and we might enjoy something rather cold and liquid and sit beside the pool. But I hope your Sunday is a great one as well. From all of us here in Dubai, thank you so much for being with us, and have a fabulous day and relish the racing that we've enjoyed here in Dubai. Bye-bye.
Bye.